I, who only wanted to play football, became the Hollywood heartthrob. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 550, Fatty Lou, Arsenal's length terminator. Today, the two centre forwards who started the game were number 10 Wayne Rooney, the fat man, and number 14 Javier Fernandez, the little P. Rooney is definitely a world-class legendary superstar. Rooney was born into a boxing family. Rooney's great-grandfather was a famous former world boxing champion. Rooney himself was also influenced by his family environment, since he was a child and loved boxing. However, he eventually chose his favorite football. But even if he played football, Rooney would still practice boxing in his spare time, and practice both boxing and kicking. In this growth process, Rooney's offensive characteristics were also forged, and he was amazingly powerful. Rooney's very famous moves were the flying fairy and the meteor pendulum, as well as the boxing celebration after scoring a goal. Rooney, who made his debut in Everton's first team at the age of 16, was called a little tank by Everton's head coach Moyes at the time. Rooney was born in a blue-collar worker family in Liverpool. Both his parents were die-hard fans of Everton. Rooney started to receive formal football training at the age of 9, but the football school he attended at that time was very amateur and there was no detailed age stratification. So Rooney always had to play football with boys who were taller and several years older than him. However, his innate physical condition and aggressive personality allowed Rooney to quickly gain a foothold among these big kids. When there was a dispute on the small court, Rooney was always able to stand out with his small stature and great energy and win people over with virtue. Many big kids were beaten by Rooney and cried, and Rooney laughed at them for being sissy. Rooney's confrontation and football talent soon won the favor of Everton scouts. Everton scouts believed that, even if this little fat boy could not play football well in the future, at least he would not suffer any loss if he helped Everton team fight. At that time, football hooligan culture was still prevalent. So, at the age of 9, Rooney directly entered the youth training camp of Everton Club and became the youngest player in the youth training camp. In 2002, when Rooney was 16 years old, head coach Moyes promoted Rooney to the first team. In the opening match of the 2002-2003 Premier League season, Rooney played for Everton for the first time in a 2-2 draw with Tottenham Hotspur, becoming the second youngest player in Everton's history. On October 2nd, Rooney scored his first official match goal for Everton in the League Cup match between Everton and West Ham, making Rooney the youngest scorer in Everton's history. On October 19th, 2002, Rooney came on as a substitute in Everton's Premier League match against Arsenal and became famous in one battle. At that time, Arsenal, led by Wenger, had been unbeaten for 30 consecutive games and dominated the Premier League standings with a strong momentum. As soon as Rooney came on the field, he first violently sprinted to the front court, turned around to stop the ball, and then kicked directly at an unguarded position 35 meters away from the goal, and kicked a powerful lark world wave. In the end, Everton defeated Arsenal 2-1. Rooney scored as soon as he came on the field, and ended Wenger's 30-game winning streak, making Arsenal's winning streak record dead, and forcing Arsenal to start over. This goal made Rooney, who was only 16 years and 360 days old, the youngest scorer in the Premier League, later broken by Milner at 16 years and 357 days and Vahan at 16 years and 271 days. It was also from 2002 that Rooney's legendary prelude was opened. At this time, Rooney was 178 centimeters tall and weighed 85 kilograms, a typical human tank. There are also many human tank type center forwards in the Premier League, but most of them are stationary forwards, relying on the midfield players to pass the ball and then use their bodies to block and fight for position, such as the Warcraft Drogba. However, Rooney is not a forward who only stands still. He has speed, footwork, and coordination awareness. Rooney can play as a center forward, a striker, a shadow striker, and even retreat to the midfield to play as a central midfielder. When Ronaldo was at the peak of his career at Manchester United, Rooney could still play the role of a supporting role to assist Ronaldo. And when the handsome Berbatov was introduced to Manchester United at a high price, Rooney could still prove with his own strength that he was definitely not the one sitting on the bench. Rooney is strong and solid, with the impact of monster, and has an innate sense of smell in front of the goal, a signature powerful shot, and an extremely hot temper. These characteristics are the most typical representatives of British stars. Rooney is both a bad boy on the field and the new King of England. The nickname of the new King of England is not self-indulgent, but officially recognised by the club. Rooney's playing style inherits some of the mantle of the George Clinton era. It is an orthodox English centre-forward playing style, and has a tendency to surpass his predecessors. Rooney has repeatedly saved the team from danger at critical moments in key games, so he is also called King by the Red Devils fans. Over time, the official website of Manchester United Club has also officially certified Rooney's title of England New King. It is unique in the history of Manchester United Club to be officially recognised as the new king by the extremely arrogant Manchester United Club. Of course, before Rooney became a Manchester United star, Everton's Moyes regarded Rooney as a hopeful star for the revival of Everton. Moreover, Rooney's family are die-hard fans of Everton, so Rooney was determined to hang up his boots at Everton at that time. After Rooney became famous with one goal in 2002, Everton offered Rooney the highest weekly salary of £13,000 in the club. You know, Rooney was only 17 years old at the time, and his blue-collar worker father only earned £280 a week, not even a fraction of Rooney's weekly salary. However, such a high salary and the team still failed to keep Rooney. Although Rooney loves Everton, Ferguson's call from Manchester United is more tempting. On September 1, 2004, Manchester United Football Club officially announced the successful purchase of Everton striker Rooney, with a transfer fee of £27 million. Rooney signed a 6-year contract with Manchester United until June 30, 2010, with a weekly salary of about £50,000. Compared with a weekly salary of £13,000 and a weekly salary of £50,000, there is a fourfold difference. What is there to love or not? Manchester United gave too much. Of course, Rooney told reporters that he went to Manchester United purely to study at a higher club and return to Everton after completing his studies. After officially joining Manchester United, Rooney's first game for Manchester United was against Fenerbahce in the Champions League group stage. In this first game, Rooney attacked Fenerbahce's defense with overwhelming force and completed a hat-trick in his debut, helping Manchester United beat Fenerbahce 6-2. This was also Rooney's first hat-trick in the Champions League. At the age of 18, he became the youngest hat-trick player in the history of the Champions League. On October 24 of the same season, in the Premier League between Manchester United and Arsenal, Rooney contributed an assist and a goal, helping Manchester United beat Arsenal 2-0 and ending Arsenal's 49-game unbeaten record. This record is also the longest unbeaten record in Arsenal's history. The second longest unbeaten record was 30 games, which was also ended by Rooney. This also caused Wenger's heart to bleed whenever he saw Rooney later. Chapter 551 Manchester United loyal soul. But Natasha will not forgive. Another starting striker for Manchester United is number 14, Little P. Javier Fernandez. The 23-year-old Little P is only 175 centimeters tall and weighs only 71 kilograms. Compared with the 85 kilograms Luke Shaw, Little P really looks a little thin and cute in the confrontational Premier League. Little P's physical condition, coupled with the gathering of stars on Manchester United's front line, has become the reason why he often sits on the bench at a young age. In this game, Manchester United's real striker Dimitar Berbatov and the super golden boy Michael Owen, who was a big shot in the Premier League before he was 18 years old, were sitting on the bench watching the game. Head coach Ferguson also determined that there would not be too much suspense in this game, and Manchester United had to save their strength to play the more important Premier League and Champions League. So Little P, who had been on the bench for a long time, was able to partner with Rooney in this game and start. Why is he called Little P? This starts with Little P's life experience. Javier Fernandez was born into a football family. His grandfather is the legendary center forward of the Mexican national team, Thomas Balcazar, and his father, Javier Sr., is also a famous international football star in Mexico. His father, Javier Fernandez Gutierrez Sr., has green eyes, so he is nicknamed P. As the son of Javier Sr., Javier Fernandez Balcazar Jr. got the nickname of a Little P. This nickname fits Javier's temperament very well. Javier himself looks delicate, and every time he scores a goal, he always likes to pout and point with his fingers, which really looks like a pea shooter. Like his grandfather and father, the Little P, who was born in a family with absolutely good family conditions, also played wild football on the street when he was young, and did not enter a professional football school from the beginning, like other children of stars. This approach also made the Little P very flexible since childhood, and he also loved the sport of football from the bottom of his heart. So, not long after hanging around on the streets, Old P sent Little P to the Guadalajara youth team, which ranked first in the Mexican Professional League, for professional training. Little P is definitely a third-generation star who grew up under the spotlight. Little P performed very well when he was young. Almost every Mexican believed that Little P would become the world's strongest center and would lead the Mexican team to create history. When Little P was 15 years old, he did not go directly to Europe to play football like other well-known second-generation and third-generation players. Instead, he chose to sign his first professional contract with Mexico's top club Guadalajara, which also gave him ample playing opportunities and absolute ball rights. Little P became a first-team player for Guadalajara at the age of 17. His national team debut was just before he went to Europe. In the friendly match against Colombia on September 30, 2009, he assisted Mexico's only goal. His national team debut was perfect. So, Little P got his wish and entered Mexico's 23-man South Africa World Cup squad. At that time, no one could have imagined that the 22-year-old would appear in the Mexican team as a starting striker, and no one could have imagined that he and his grandfather had also broken the French team's goal for Mexico. When Little P's domestic reputation reached its peak, he joined the star-studded Manchester United club at the age of 21. Little P's style of play is very flexible. He does not have the speed of 21-year-old Owen, nor the explosiveness of 21-year-old Rooney. His football style is more like a fox in the penalty area, always appearing in the required position when needed. During his time at Manchester United, Little P's appearances were very limited, far less than his appearance rate in the Mexican League, but Little P always seized the opportunity to score as many goals and assists as possible. Although Little P is not tall, his most iconic way of scoring goals during his time at Manchester United was to appear in the dead corner of the small penalty area and then head the ball into the goal like a pea shooter spitting beans. In general, the football style of Little P is similar to that of Romario. In the penalty area, he always finds the passing line before others and then turns the pass into a goal. A striker like him doesn't shoot many times in the whole game, but as long as he shoots, he will score. This is a very terrible, very terrifying striker. If Manchester United is not full of big names, and Ferguson focuses more on wingers, Little P should definitely be the core player of the team. But because Little P's confrontation is not enough, and he is more prone to injury, his playing time in Manchester United is very small. Although Little P has won many championships in Manchester United, he basically won them while sitting on the bench. Manchester United's starting left winger is Manchester United's legendary star, a representative of the class of '92, a role model for the Red Devils, a lifelong loyal, a lifelong City, and a brother-in-law who will never betray him. Number 11, Ryan Giggs. When it comes to the class of '92, most fans are most impressed by David Beckham. But in fact, the one who was really favored by Sir Alex Ferguson in the class of '92 was Giggs. Of course, the ginger-headed Scholes is actually stronger than Giggs in overall strength, but Scholes was not favored by Ferguson at the beginning because of his physical defects, and Ferguson advocated the two wings flying together. When Beckham was not fast enough, could not dribble, and had poor breakthroughs, and could only play cool and set pieces, all the threatening attacks of Manchester United came from the magic wing Giggs. Jiggs around 1999 was definitely at his peak, and was definitely the world's #1 magic wing. The popular winger style of play later was largely due to Manchester United's use of Jiggs to sprint and break through. Jiggs was picked by Ferguson at the age of 14, and was selected into the 92nd class. He has been playing for Manchester United since he retired. It can be said that Jiggs' career is Ferguson's entire era. Ferguson does prefer Jiggs, and even Ferguson himself admits that his love for Jiggs exceeds his love for Scholes. Jiggs is also one of the few Premier League clubs who can be loyal to one team for his whole life. Therefore, he is deeply worshipped by the Red Devils fans. Manchester United club has established Jiggs as a moral role model. In 2007, the Queen specially awarded Jiggs a loyalty medal. Until 2011, that is, now, Jiggs was exposed to have an affair with Miss Wales Imogen. But Jiggs persuaded his wife through his own efforts, and made his wife forgive his cheating. At that time, Jiggs said to the interview camera of the reporter that he just made a mistake that every man would make. He thought that his wife forgave the matter, and it was over. But then, it was the most explosive. Jiggs' sister-in-law, that is, his brother's wife Natasha, announced that she would not forgive Jiggs. Natasha told the reporter that she had been Jiggs' secret lover before she met his brother. In order to maintain a long-term relationship with Jiggs, she even endured the humiliation and married his brother. But she didn't expect that Jiggs would sleep with her every day and cheat on her. Natasha couldn't forgive her. After hearing this, the reporter's CPUs burned out. This is the famous sister-in-law scandal. After the scandal was exposed, Chelsea's iron-blooded loyal soul Terry secretly gave Jiggs a thumbs up. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 552. The daily routine of the Dutch team: eating, sleeping, and playing against Leo Heng. Although he is embroiled in the scandal of his brother's wife, it is undeniable that Jiggs, now 37 years old, is still strong. The frequency of his coming several times a day is really impressive. Jiggs' peak period in his football career was very long and his physique was very good, so this is why Jiggs always comes several times a day. Of course, cheating is wrong after all. Sleeping with your brother's wife is even more wrong. In order to sleep with your brother's wife, letting your love marry your brother as his wife for the convenience of a tryst is even more wrong. But leaving aside the moral factors, Jiggs can indeed be called the strongest winger at the turn of the century. Jiggs is excellent in everything on the court. Not only does he have super fast speed, but also has skilled dribbling skills, surgical precision passes, a confrontational attitude like swallowing mountains and rivers, and key shots that can be taken advantage of. Sir Alex Ferguson's preference for Jiggs is not without reason. It can be said that, since the class of '92, Manchester United has had countless big-name players, but the real core of Manchester United is not Beckham, not Ronaldo, not Scholes, not Rooney, nor Nani, but only Jiggs. When mentioning Jiggs, we have to mention another super magic winger on the left side, the Flying Dutchman, the little flying stick, no, Robben. In terms of the influence of fame, Robben is generally recognized to be higher than Jiggs. Robben's dribbling speed on the wing is definitely the best in the world, and it is an undisputed existence. However, the king of the wing is not just about speed, but also about footwork, confrontation, overall vision, crosses, etc. Robben's speed is better than Jiggs, his breakthrough is sharper than Jiggs, more ornamental, and more exciting. On the other hand, Jiggs' speed of breaking through the wing is also very fast, second only to Robben's speed, but at the same time, Jiggs' breakthrough style is relatively stable. He does not seem to be in a hurry to put all his abilities on speed, but pays attention to controlling the rhythm. At the same time, he will use his flexible knees to perform dazzling line changes and dribbling. When breaking through with the ball, he will pay attention to the overall situation, try to help his teammates tear open space, and then find the most appropriate time to cross the ball. Therefore, Robben is more like a fierce general who rushes to kill, full of reckless blood, and it is fun to watch. Jiggs is more like an instigator and attractor, who does not fight alone to show how outstanding he is. Both of them are the kings of the left side, but their styles are different. Robin cuts inside after a high-speed breakthrough, while Jiggs is more likely to cross the ball after breaking through. Another way to say it is that Robin is the ADC on the right side, and Jiggs is the auxiliary on the left side. From this style alone, Jiggs himself cannot be compared with Robin's popularity. But this really does not mean that Jiggs is not as good as Robin. Robin's biggest problem is his poor physique. He is a glass man, which is also the most troublesome part for speed winger. Once injured, his speed limit will drop. If Robin had not been troubled by injuries, his achievements would be higher, far more than the title of King of Wingers and King of Cut-ins. Jiggs is much better than Robin in physique, except that his speed and cut-ins are not as good as Robin. In 2011, Jiggs was 37 years old, but he could still start in the FA Cup final, and he could sleep with his wife, sleep with models, and then sleep with his brother's wife. In addition, Jiggs' dribbling ability, ball control ability, organizational ability, passing ability, defensive ability, physical ability, and peak time are all higher than Robin's. In general, Jiggs is really not inferior to Robin. It's just that Robin's breakthrough is too beautiful, and long distance high speed breakthrough is commonplace, while Jiggs' breakthrough is not as gorgeous as Robin's, and it is rare for a person to cut into the penalty area and shoot directly after a long distance attack, so Jiggs' reputation is lower than Robin. There are two very big reasons why Jiggs has not surpassed Robin in fame. The first reason is the national team. Robin is the pride of the Dutch. The strength of the Dutch team in the World Cup is obvious to all. They are frequent visitors to the world's top 8, top 4, and even the championship and runner-up. But Jiggs has never participated in the World Cup. Jiggs is Welsh and has English nationality. He can choose to play for England. If he chooses to play for the Three Lions of England, the strength of the England team will be greatly improved to the level of being able to enter the top 4. Jiggs himself can also gain higher reputation with his performance in the World Cup, at least in terms of world-class competitions. Compete with Robin. However, Jiggs did not choose to play for England, but insisted on playing for his homeland Wales, even when Wales did not have other players to show off during his peak period, even if Wales could not enter the World Cup, even if Jiggs did not have any personal experience in the World Cup. What is this called? This is called loyalty. Although a person who is extremely unfaithful to his marriage should not be called loyal, Jiggs is indeed loyal to Manchester United and his country. He has poor personal ethics, but excellent public ethics. Human beings are complex higher animals. They have morals but also animality. Jiggs is a case of being unfaithful to his wife and loyal to his country. Of course, no matter what, Jiggs, who has never participated in the World Cup, has lost a lot to Robin in terms of fame. In addition, Jiggs is a man in one city and has never transferred or had any transfer rumors. The only scandal is a negative scandal of his brother's wife, so Jiggs is even less famous than Robin. Robin's negative news is at most fighting. But is this kind of news still negative for the Dutch? In the Netherlands, the Three Sticks were all positive news with blood boiling. At that time, the Dutch team's training routine was a fixed cycle of eating, sleeping, Sneijder Van Persie and Robin exchanging stick techniques, Sneijder Van Persie and Robin hitting Huntelaar, and then eating and sleeping. In addition to being inferior to Robin at the national team level, Jiggs was also inferior to Robin at the club level, or in terms of personal awards and personal value. Robin was born in Groningen club and experienced Eindhoven, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Bayern. 5 clubs. Every time he transferred, it was a gorgeous rise, and his personal value and weekly salary increased geometrically. Jiggs started playing for Manchester United at the age of 14. From 14 to 41, he played for one man and one city, and never had any transfer rumors. Without transfer rumors, there would be no heat, and there would be no increase in value. The practice of one man and one city also completely tied his honors to Manchester United, and the number of trophies he received was naturally the same as Manchester United. Therefore, in terms of fame, value, and awards, Jiggs is too low-key and far from Robin's level. But if the two are at the same age, and in the same peak period, Jiggs' overall strength is really higher than Robin's. Every club will pursue Robin, but if Giggs can also be transferred, then most clubs will choose Giggs. Even though he slept with his wife, slept with a model, and then slept with his brother's wife. Chapter 553 Manchester United's Dark Four. Nadal doesn't pass the ball. The man who dares to steal Ronaldo's goal. Manchester United starting right winger is number 17, known as Ronaldo's successor. He claims to be a lifelong friend of Ronaldo, and snatched Ronaldo's goal-winning backflip in a blink of an eye. Nani is not Nani. Nani is just a nickname. Just like Kaká is not Kaká, but just a nickname. Kaká's real name is Ricardo Ison dos Santos Leite. It stands to reason that fans should call Kaká Ricardo, but once Ricardo is called, it feels like Kaká's appearance has been lowered, so everyone still likes to call Kaká Kaká. Nani's real name is Luis Carlos Almeida da Cunha. The reason why he is called Nani is that he was always called that by his sister when he was a child. He got used to it, so Nani became his nickname. Nani's most famous identity should be that he is from the same school as Ronaldo. Not only do he and Ronaldo have the same agent, Men's, but they also have the same nationality and are both from Sporting Lisbon. Nani showed a good talent for football since he was a child, so Men's was also optimistic about Nani. Men's recommended him to Ronaldo, who was then at Manchester United. After investigation, Manchester United found that Nani was indeed good, so they bought Nani. In this way, in 2007, Nani, who was only 20 years old, was brought to Manchester United by Ferguson and became Ronaldo's teammate. Nani is full of energy and passion on the court, and he runs very actively. He breaks through the wing very quickly. His technical moves are a bit like his old predecessor Figo, but his speed is faster than Figo. His signature move is to dunk the ball back and forth with his left and right feet. He has a strong ability to control the ball. When dribbling, the ball seems to be glued to his feet, and he can often make amazing passing moves. His passes are accurate, and he can often pass medium and long distance passes, and they are extremely penetrating. The back line of a general team simply cannot defend against Nani's breakthrough ability. Of course, Nani is not without shortcomings. Nani is 175 centimeters tall, but weighs only 66 kilograms. He is typically thin and weak in confrontation. With this physical condition, he still has great technical advantages in Portugal and La Liga, but Nani chose the Premier League. It is actually okay to play small and fast in the Premier League, just more traction, more penetration, more passes, and more cooperation, but Nani likes to shoot by himself. Obviously, he does not have enough strength, but he likes to shoot from a distance. So Nani often misses the ball. What's more terrible is that Nani is more independent after getting the ball. There is obviously a good opportunity to pass the ball to the center forward or other players in a better position on the field, but Nani just doesn't pass it. He just wants to break through with his own ability. If he can't break through, he will learn from his big brother Cristiano Ronaldo to dive and cheat for set pieces and penalties. Cristiano Ronaldo was also speechless by him. It is precisely because Nani is so independent that fans gave him a nickname. One of the four Dark Kings of Manchester United, Nani does not pass. What is even more terrible is that Nani not only does not like to pass the ball, but even wants to steal the goal that is sure to be scored by his big brother, whom he calls his lifelong love and lifelong best friend. It was an international friendly match between Portugal and Spain at home in November 2010. At that time, Ronaldo dribbled into the penalty area. He first used a beautiful fake move to knock down the big scumbag Pique, who was still in the hiding period. Then, facing the defense and the attacking San Casillas, Ronaldo kicked a perfect lob shot. Just when the ball was about to enter the goal, Nani rushed over and headed Ronaldo's sure to go goal on the goal line and headed the ball into the net that was already sure to go in. If he just stole the sure to go goal of the big brother, it would be fine. But the problem is that Nani was in an offside position at the time. Therefore, this sure to go goal became an invalid goal because of Nani's stealing of the ball. Ronaldo cursed and threw the captain's armband in anger, but Nani was laughing. In a later interview, Nani said that Ronaldo's throwing of the captain's armband was not directed at him. After all, he was Ronaldo's beloved little brother. How could Ronaldo lose his temper with him? Ronaldo must have lost his temper at the referee's decision. Nani said, I was as angry about the referee's decision as Chris. Chris is not so petty that he would be angry with me because of my hard work. He was really angry with the referee. The ball had clearly flown over the goal line, but the referee made a wrong decision that was not in our favor. Chris is very good. Chris is never petty. Even if I had stolen the ball, Chris would have hugged me and congratulated me. It was the referee who ruined everything for us. After Nani's interview, Ronaldo, who was never petty, really had nothing to say. In any case, Nani is definitely a first-class star. Nani is a versatile player in the front court. He can play not only right winger, but also left winger, right midfielder, left midfielder, and striker, shadow striker. After Ronaldo left Manchester United in 2009, Nani did take on part of Ronaldo's role, especially in diving. In today's game, Southampton not only had to focus on defending Manchester United's core engine Giggs, but also had to focus on Nani. They were not afraid of Nani's long-range shots hitting the clean, but they were afraid of Nani diving and lying on the grass. In the right winger position, Manchester United's bench also sat another darking. Valencia does not shoot and unhappy Valencia. Valencia is a winger with natural defensive ability. He has good breakthroughs, excellent running positions, and good ball stopping, but he is always a bit slower in shooting. Even before he shoots, the defender on the opposite side seizes the opportunity to clear the ball. Therefore, Valencia has the nickname of Valencia does not shoot. Nani can go 90 minutes without passing, while Valencia can go 90 minutes without passing. Manchester United was still able to stand at the top of the Premier League during the period when it had the Dark Four, which definitely had a lot to do with Ferguson and Giggs. If it weren't for Ferguson and Giggs, Manchester United would have long since become a relegation team because of the Dark Four. Manchester United's starting midfielder is Darren Fletch, number 24, Wastewood, F24, Son, Old Man's Universal Patch, and number 13 player Park Ji-sung. I have 3 lungs, and I can defend Messi alone. Fletch was born in Manchester United's youth training, and Fletch is also Ferguson's hope to replicate the glory of the '92 class of youth training. Fletch is at the same level as Bardsley, who tackled his own popular star Cristiano Ronaldo in his debut, and Welbeck and others. It can be said that Ferguson's '92 class continuation plan selected very good players, but the '92 class is really impossible to replicate. No one can reach the height of Beckham alone, let alone Scholes and Giggs. The second generation of youth training classes are basically not good, and only Fletch can still play well. Chapter 554 Sir Alex Ferguson's biological son. The best in Asia. Fletcher's performance was not outstanding at the beginning, especially among the young players of British star level such as Bardsley and Welbeck. Fletcher's performance could only be regarded as mediocre, without any special highlights. But Ferguson has always been known for his sharp vision. Ferguson boldly promoted Fletch to the Manchester United first team before Fletch showed any highlights. And British stars like Welbeck and Bardsley were exiled to Sunderland by Ferguson. Ferguson did not even buy Sunderland star player Henderson. Ferguson's preference for Fletch is very similar to Ferguson's preference for Giggs. Ferguson intends to make Fletch into an engine like Giggs. Coincidentally, Ferguson's son is also named Darren, and Ferguson has called Darren Fletch Darren Ferguson more than once in interviews. In the Manchester United club, everyone knows that Fletch is just like Ferguson's own son. It's a pity that Fletch is not Giggs. After Ferguson trained him with a lot of playing time, Fletch was naturally very good, but he was still very far from becoming the next Giggs. When Fletch was first promoted to Manchester United's first team, Beckham was clamoring for a transfer, so Fletch played as a left winger, but Fletch's performance was not enough to be Manchester United's right winger, especially compared with the former right winger Beckham. Fletch's experience was not as good as Beckham, his running was not as good as Beckham, his defense was not as good as Beckham, his set pieces were not as good as Beckham, and most importantly, his appearance was not as good as Beckham. Therefore, when Fletch just entered Manchester United's first team, he was called a waste by the fans. Later, Manchester United changed to a more popular 4-3-3 formation, and Fletch was transformed into a midfielder by Ferguson, and then into a defensive midfielder. Fletch, who was transformed into a defensive midfielder, finally found the feeling of F24. Fletch has gradually grown into a sweeping defensive midfielder who mainly runs and intercepts. Fletch's main task on the field is defense. He is very strong. He is 27 years old, 183 centimeters tall and weighs 85 kilograms. He is very confrontational, extremely physically fit, and has a wide range of activities. Because he was trained in the way of jigs before, he has skills and impact at his feet, and he is fast. He can also insert from the back row and pass well, especially on the right side. He can often run into the penalty area to participate in the attack. Although such ability is not outstanding among top stars, it is very unexpectedly in line with Ferguson's two-wing flying style. When attacking, Fletch, the defensive midfielder, can move forward as a central midfielder and temporary front midfielder to assist, protect, and pick up leaks. In addition, Fletch can also play as a full-back. This is simply Ferguson's favorite. Therefore, Ferguson particularly favors Fletch, who is also a Scotsman, and even often praises Fletch in the locker room. You know, Ferguson's nickname is the hairdryer. He usually curses and swears at people, and rarely laughs and praises people. Fletch was praised by Ferguson as a universal patch, which means that Fletch can patch up wherever he is needed. This is definitely the highest praise Ferguson gave to his players. However, although Ferguson treated Fletch as his own son and gave Fletch many opportunities to play, in fact, Fletch was still not Ferguson's main choice. Just as Ferguson positioned Fletch, Fletch was just a patch. Only in less important games that required rotation, Fletch could start. Most of the time, Fletch was a substitute as a universal patch, just like the positioning of the super substitute Solskjaer back then. Ferguson needs such a son, a good son who can sacrifice himself for Manchester United's victory at any time. In this FA Cup final, Ferguson sent Fletch to start. In addition to Ferguson's preference for Fletch, he also felt that Southampton was not a threat. Therefore, Fletch plus 442 double defensive midfielder plus 2 wings flying tactics is a good response. Of course, Ferguson did not underestimate Southampton. Ferguson's biggest advantage as a head coach is that he will do a lot of intelligence work and analysis work before the game. This game is the FA Cup final, and Southampton, as a League One team, can be a dark horse all the way to the end. Not only won the League One Championship, won the British Championship, but also won the League Cup Championship, and defeated Everton, Sunderland, Tottenham, Chelsea, Liverpool and other strong teams. This is no longer good luck, this is really strong. And Ferguson saw the strength of Southampton at a glance, that is, the Chinese boy Guran who was once recommended to him. Therefore, it is very simple to play Southampton. As long as Guran can be restricted, Southampton will be beaten back to its original form. Of course, Ferguson also knew that he was not the only head coach who thought so. Everton's head coach Moyes, Sunderland's head coach Stephen Bruce, Tottenham's head coach Redknapp, Chelsea's head coach Ancelotti, Liverpool's head coach Kenny Dalglish, all thought so. But these teams that were killed by Guran were not as good as Manchester United in one respect. That is, Manchester United could use 442 to attack with both wings, and at the same time, they could not use the front midfielder. Let Fletcher, the back midfielder, temporarily play the front midfielder / central midfielder, and let the other back midfielder stare at Guran like a dogskin plaster throughout the whole process. This dogskin plaster is the number 13 player, the Korean star Park Ji-sung. In fact, with Park Ji-sung's ability, it is difficult to make the starting lineup, but Ferguson uses people like a god, never sticking to whether a certain player is qualified, but only looking at whether it is suitable. The biggest feature of Park Ji-sung is Park's 3 lungs. He can't run to death, and his physical strength is unlimited, just like having 3 lungs. This is naturally very advantageous for Guran, who is always running. In addition, Park Ji-sung is also a versatile player on the field. He can not only play as a central midfielder, but also as a left and right midfielder, as a front midfielder, a back midfielder, and even a full back. Park Ji-sung's hard work and seriousness in training are definitely the benchmark among Manchester United players. Although Park Ji-sung did not score many goals in Manchester United, there is a very famous law, Harry Potter's law, that is, as long as Park Ji-sung scores, Manchester United will win. But in fact, this law is a bit of a self-flattering. After all, you are a player used as a rotation by Ferguson. It is very easy to replace you. If you replace you, and you don't need to defend, you can attack and shoot at will, which means that Manchester United's own advantage is already obvious. In this case, Manchester United will naturally win 100% when you score. Of course, it has to be admitted that Park Ji-sung during this period was definitely the top player in Asia in terms of identity, status, and weekly salary. In today's match, Ferguson sent Park Ji-sung as the midfielder, and the meaning was very clear, that is, to use the Asian number 1 player to catch Guran. Therefore, one of the highlights of this FA Cup is the duel between two Asian players. Influenced by this highlight, the number of online viewers of Ran Live has exceeded 1 million before the game officially started. All Chinese people are looking forward to Guran's wonderful performance in defeating Fengzi. Chapter 555, The Red Devils' Loyal Soul. The greatest and most low-key midfielder in the current football world. On the bench of Manchester United, there are two world-class midfielders, Ginger Scholes and Carrick. Paul Scholes is also a member of Class 92, but at the beginning, Sir Alex Ferguson was not optimistic about Scholes, and did not even plan to sign the young Scholes. It was the strong recommendation of Harris, the youth training coach at the time, that Ferguson reluctantly let Scholes enter Class 92. There was a reason why Ferguson was not optimistic about Scholes. At that time, Scholes was not only short, but also had a big head. His limbs were not coordinated, his body was thin, and his confrontation was extremely poor. Although Scholes had shown extraordinary talent at that time, his weakness made it difficult for Ferguson, who had experienced and seen countless people, to believe that Scholes could create miracles and become a star. Ferguson even felt that Scholes could not persist in the extremely intense training class of 92. But the final facts proved that Ferguson was wrong. Ferguson rarely made mistakes, but Ferguson himself admitted that he was wrong in his view of Scholes from the beginning. Scholes created a miracle that ordinary people could not create. He was a child who could hardly play football. Through his own efforts, he gradually became a world-class midfielder. Scholes' nickname is Gingerhead. This nickname has a long history and is an insulting title in itself. When Scholes was 7 or 8 years old, his limbs were short, but his head was big. He was a child with physical problems. But Scholes likes to play football very much. His parents also support him to play football for his health. However, because he looks sick and weird, children of the same age are unwilling to play with him. Scholes can only play football with children older than him. Because he is young, has short limbs and a big head, he is nicknamed Freak Scholes, Carrot Head and Ginger Head by the children in the upper grades. Scholes was very angry, but he couldn't beat these children in the upper grades, so he could only practice hard alone. This also created his stubborn character who doesn't like to talk when encountering things. Later, with his own strength, Scholes was looked down upon by his fellow students. After he came to Class 92, even the head coach Ferguson looked at him with disdain. In the physical examination report, before entering Class 92, Scholes suffered from severe asthma, albinism, and eye diseases. Not to mention albinism and eye diseases, asthma alone is enough to sentence Scholes to death in his career. However, Scholes persisted in the almost crazy training of Class 92. Not only did he persist, but Scholes also beat Giggs, Beckham, and the Neville brothers, and won the best training. Ferguson's Class 92 is full of stars. Beckham is undoubtedly the most influential, and Giggs is undoubtedly the one Ferguson relies on the most. But the strongest in Class 92, the one who can be called a midfield master, is the Gingerhead Scholes. The presence of Scholes allows Ferguson to boldly change tactics, whether it is 442 or 433, whether it is flying on both wings, or passing and controlling the flow. As long as Scholes is there, Ferguson can boldly change. Scholes is also the most underestimated midfielder. As the saying goes, the one who controls the midfield wins the world. There are many midfielders in the world today, such as Zidane, Pirlo, Xavi, Iniesta, and even Gerrard and Lampard can be called midfielders. However, few people think of Scholes at the first time. Because he is too low-key, so that whether taking pictures or winning championships, he is always at the back, or in the most hidden corner. But such a low-key person is a player that all the above midfielders admire. There is such a saying in the current football world when we are all discussing who is the midfielder master, the masters are discussing Scholes. Zidane commented on Scholes. He is undoubtedly the greatest midfielder of this generation. His performance is almost impeccable. He makes the game look simple, because his talent is so strong. I never get tired of watching his games. You rarely see a comprehensive midfielder, but Scholes is the closest one. One of the biggest regrets in my career is that I didn't have the opportunity to play with him. If you let me name an opponent I'm most afraid of meeting, it must be Scholes of Manchester United, because he is a true master. Xavi is also a fan of Scholes. The best and most comprehensive midfielder I have seen in the past 15 to 20 years is Scholes. I have talked about him many times with Xabi Alonso. Scholes is an amazing player who has everything. He can make the final pass. He can score goals. He is strong. He is never squeezed out when he controls the ball, and he rarely makes passes. If he was Spanish, his value might be higher. Scholes' playing style is full of imagination. His offensive means are extremely diverse. He can not only attack with the ball, but also wait for the opportunity to pass the deadly ball. The most commendable thing is his ability to attack from behind. After passing the ball to his teammates, he can ghost into the penalty area from the midfield and grab the best attack point to complete the deadly attack. Scholes deserves the title of the best long passer in the history of the Premier League. His attainments in passing have reached the pinnacle. Scholes is a man who rarely speaks, but he is extremely active on the court. He speaks with his feet. When he played for Manchester United and England, he was an indispensable part. Scholes can always pass the ball easily and accurately, which makes the opponent tremble. This is a terrible thing about Scholes. During the nearly 20 years that Scholes played for Manchester United, he left many wonderful goals and wonderful long passes. His passing skills, vision, and ball control skills are impressive. Scholes is a quiet and low-key midfielder, but his greatness is not just in those powerful volleys. Premier League top scorer Alan Shearer once commented on Scholes. Scholes' passing and shooting are at the highest level, and he can also tackle. Scholes is the most stable and talented player in England for a long time. Scholes is also a model of lifelong loyalty to one team. Moreover, Scholes is better than Giggs, because Scholes has never had any scandals since his debut, whether it is a positive transfer scandal or a negative cheating scandal. Scholes is too low-key, so low-key that he can almost be called a football blind filter. This low-key also affected his position in the national team. The England national team gave the midfield position to Lampard and Gerrard, who had higher voices, but not to Scholes, who had higher strength. Disappointed, Scholes announced his withdrawal from the England national team and concentrated on playing for the club. This also led to England's failure to go far in the World Cup, and also caused Scholes to fail to show his brilliance in the World Cup. At present, Scholes, 36 years old, has decided to retire after the end of this season. In addition to this FA Cup final, Scholes will also play as a substitute in the remaining 2 Premier League games, the Champions League semi-finals and the finals, and among these games, the one Scholes is most likely to play is the FA Cup match against the English League One team Southampton. Therefore, today's game is likely to be Scholes' farewell game. Therefore, Manchester United fans are extremely eager for this final. The Red Devils are ready. Once Scholes comes on as a substitute, they will pay tribute to this Red Devils loyal soul with the warmest and craziest cheers in their lives. Chapter 556. All the substitutes are big names. This is the era of the Red Devils. Another midfielder sitting on the bench is the Archangel, the god of cards, Michael Carrick. Carrick was not a Manchester United player, but started at West Ham United and later moved to Tottenham Hotspur. It was not until 2006 that Ferguson dug him to Manchester United for €16.8 million. Ferguson was very optimistic about Carrick. After all, in 2006, although the price of €16.8 million was not top-notch, it was definitely a sky-high transfer fee for a young player who was not very famous. Carrick is 29 years old, 185 centimeters tall and weighs 75 kilograms. But before joining Manchester United, Carrick was a creamy boy, weighing only 66 kilograms, and his confrontation was naturally very poor. Ferguson wanted to train Carrick to be a player like Roy Keane at first, and Carrick also got Keane's number 16 player, but Carrick is not the type of player that Keane is at all. When Carrick first came to Manchester United, he had many nicknames: Lady Carrick, Missing Carrick, Invisible Emperor, Backpass Brother, Soft Brother. Therefore, in the first few years after coming to Manchester United, Carrick struggled and could not find his position. He worked very hard, but he always gave people the feeling that his ability was very average, and he was not worthy of Manchester United at all. This led to his lack of confidence. In addition, his physical fitness was at a disadvantage in high-level confrontations, especially in the way that he could imitate Roy Keane, which made Carrick even more uncomfortable. At that time, Carrick did not feel very reassuring, whether in the front or backcourt. Once the opponent's midfield stranglehold increased, Carrick, who played softly, would directly become invisible and even make various low-level mistakes. The Red Devils fans have almost never stopped criticizing Carrick. The soft waist in the post-Keane era is also the most serious problem facing the Manchester United team. In the first few years of Manchester United, Carrick won many honours with Manchester United as a substitute, but none of them was earned by himself. Carrick once doubted himself and even wanted to transfer away. But at this time, Ferguson's ability to judge people and his courage were revealed. Ferguson continued to believe in Carrick and continued to give Carrick time to find his position. Under Ferguson's encouragement, Carrick quickly evolved. Although he wore Keane's number 16 jersey and played as a defensive midfielder, Carrick no longer played according to other people's ideas about him. Not every midfielder has to play like a beast waist or an engineer. Pirlo and Busquets are not, and neither is Carrick. Carrick's evolution began in the 2008-09 and 2009-10 seasons. In the 2010-11 season, Carrick had completely completed the transformation and was completely enlightened. This is actually also due to Scholes. In the 2 seasons, when Scholes retired and returned to Manchester United, he no longer attacked forward as in the past, but focused on the ability to dispatch in the backcourt. Scholes' control over the transformation of the team's offensive and defensive rhythm has reached a superb level. Under the influence of Scholes, the double midfield cooperation between Carrick and Fletch also began to get on track. Fletch was equivalent to a midfield troublemaker, while Carrick was behind to organize the attack. The cooperation between the two was equivalent to a Scholes. On defense, although Carrick could not sweep his own backcourt like Keane, Carrick had developed an excellent sense of position. He could not only assist in defending his teammates, but also complete beautiful steals. Later, in the post-Ferguson era, Manchester United entered a turbulent period. Carrick's style of play was more stable at this stage. Although his physical fitness was still weak, he relied on his height and excellent position prediction to act as Manchester United's metronome in defense and team counter-attacks. Both Coach Moyes and Coach Van Gaal were inseparable from Carrick. It was also in the past 2 years that Manchester United fans finally stopped calling Carrick the Invisible Emperor and respectfully called Carrick the God of Card. Carrick's growth trajectory is to suppress first and then rise, and his fame is far less than that of the midfielders of the same era: Arteta, the Tau brother, and the leg sister, the Dragon brothers Xabi Alonso. However, Carrick, who is getting older and more demonic, now has excellent prediction and dispatching abilities, as well as the ability to issue cards in the backcourt with forward passes and large-scale transfers on both wings. He can also fill in positions and intercept. He is the midfield commander with the highest passing success rate in the Premier League. It is not difficult to see from the growth trajectories of Scholes and Carrick that real stars are not born, but rely on progress and growth to break through step by step. Some stars are not very famous when they hear their names, but in fact they are just low-key. Their strength is really not worse than those famous superstars. Scholes and Carrick two extremely strong stars, are sitting on the bench of Manchester United, as well as the substitute striker Rowan and the unhappy wing of Valencia. Manchester United in this era is really a super battleship that is enough to make people gasp, and this era also belongs to the Red Devils. Compared with the starting strikers and midfielders, Manchester United's starting back line is more luxurious. Manchester United's starting four defenders are number 20 Fabio, number 3 Evra, number 5 Ferdinand, number 15 Vidic. The 20-year-old Brazilian defender Fabio da Silva is 172 centimeters tall and weighs 69 kilograms. He is still in the technical growth stage. What Manchester United fans like most about him is not his speed, his ability to play left and right full backs and left and right wing backs, but most importantly, Fabio has a twin brother, Rafael. Rafael and Fabio look almost exactly the same and can also play left and right full backs and left and right wing backs. The height, weight, and ball handling styles of the two brothers are almost exactly the same. Manchester United has always liked this combination of twin brothers and left and right fullbacks because in the 92 class, Gary Neville and Philip Neville were very famous and very capable left and right fullbacks. Gary Neville and Philip Neville have also been left and right fullback partners in the national team. This combination of twin brothers, regardless of their strength, is enough to attract a lot of attention. So, when Fabio and Rafael were brought to Manchester United, the then Manchester United captain Gary Neville exclaimed, "Boss, is this going to make me retire?" The most glorious moment in the lives of Fabio and Rafael was when they received an invitation call from Ronaldo himself when they were less than 18 years old. At that time, Fabio and Rafael had already tried out at Manchester United and also received a trial invitation from Wenger's Arsenal. The strength of the two brothers had already emerged among the giants. In an interview with the media, Fabio described it with an intoxicated face. "It was a rainy day. Just when Rafael and I were lying at home feeling bored, our phone rang. When I picked up the phone, the first thing I heard was a greeting in Portuguese. As a Brazilian, of course I can understand Portuguese, which made me feel very cordial, but also very strange, because that voice was both strange and familiar. That familiar yet strange voice said to me, 'Hi, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo.'" Chapter 557, a cool article template. The peak is when you get the hang of it. At that time, I held the phone and said, "What fuck?" Yes. I yelled a swear word at the great Cristiano Ronaldo, but it was definitely not out of disrespect, but shock. I really didn't expect that Cristiano Ronaldo would call me in person. I couldn't believe it. My first reaction was that it was a joke. Someone was impersonating my idol. But Chris quickly said, "Don't call fuck. I'm really Cristiano Ronaldo. On behalf of Manchester United, I sincerely invite you and your twin brother Rafael to play for Manchester United. You don't have to care about anything. You don't need to prepare anything. You just come here and I will arrange everything else for you." So, everything just happened. Rafael and I almost floated to Manchester United and came to play next to the great Cristiano Ronaldo, although we didn't fight side by side for a long time, only 18 months. But Chris's encouragement to us brothers and his role model on the training ground in the game field will benefit both of us brothers for life. As young fullbacks of Manchester United, the brothers Fabio and Rafael were coveted and had high hopes. Every Manchester United player liked this pair of young and powerful Brazilian brothers and took good care of them. Once, Liverpool's Gerrard sprayed trash talk to the young Fabio on the court. Before Fabio could react, Rooney clenched his fist as big as a casserole and slammed Gerrard into the grass. It can be said that when Fabio and Rafael brothers first came to Manchester United, they were absolutely the darlings of all Manchester United players and fans. But unfortunately, despite Neville's personal guidance, despite the cooperation with the world's #1 defenders Rio Ferdinand and Vidic, and despite the world-class goalkeeper Van der Sar behind them, the originally talented Fabio and Rafael brothers ultimately failed to develop and become world-class defenders. Their achievements are even far less than those of the Neville brothers. Their highlights were very high, and their starting point was also very high. For a while, Rafael was even called a putter by Manchester United fans, but the discerning Ferguson first gave up Fabio and loaned Fabio to the English Championship. In the Moyes period, the two brothers were even put up for sale by Manchester United. Manchester United starting lineup today only gave the elder brother Fabio the position of right back, while the starting left back position was given to the veteran, the third master, Patrick Evra. Why is he called Evra the third master? First of all, it is because Evra wears a number 3 jersey. Secondly, Evra is very desperate on the field and can run a lot. He plays football in a completely desperate manner. He is also very straightforward and loves to take charge of things. He deserves the word 3 and the word master. Evra is Manchester United's iron-blooded left back. He often stays on the front line with minor injuries. He also has a record of starting without missing a whole season. Unlike the local stars of the Premier League, Evra, who was born in Senegal, has had a very hard life since childhood. When he was 1 year old, he was taken by his parents to flee to Belgium, and then fled to France. When he was 10 years old, his parents divorced. The family had no food to eat. After his father left irresponsibly, little Evra really went hungry 3 times a day. Not to mention going to school. Even playing football was a luxury. Every morning when he opened his eyes, he had to think about how to have enough food today. In the end, it was football that made Evra find the meaning of life. After Evra became famous, he told the media who came to interview him that if he hadn't played football on the street by chance, he would be a beggar in front of a bakery in Paris. After contacting football on the street, Evra fell in love with football. He would rather be hungry than beg for football. This level of enthusiasm soon made him famous in the streets of the slums of Paris with a very high crime rate. Soon, the young and malnourished Evra was spotted by a scout from a professional club in Ligue 2. So Evra was finally able to eat enough and began to receive formal training. A year later, a French Ligue 1 club came to select new players, but Evra was not selected because he was not tall enough, which made Evra very depressed. But after being depressed, Evra still did not give up playing football. He knew that only by playing well could he save his mother and brothers and sisters from a poor life. Football was his hobby and an opportunity for him to settle down. Another year later, Evra went to Italy for a trial. After half a month of trial in Turin, the Turin club was not optimistic about Evra and was only willing to give Evra a semi-professional youth student contract. Evra was extremely depressed and even doubted that he was really not suitable for this job. However, Evra did not bow his head in frustration. He took up his courage again and traveled across most of Italy alone to the Marsola club for a trial. In the end, the inconspicuous Marsola club gave him a professional contract with the lowest price, and Evra finally started his professional career. However, even after starting his professional career, Evra performed very mediocrely. Whether in Marsola or Monza, where he later transferred, Evra was not able to perform well enough to get on a bigger stage. Evra was also very disappointed with himself, and even began to think about switching to selling football supplies to support his family. After leaving Monza, Evra returned to France and joined the Nice team. This time, Evra had no hope for himself. He just wanted to earn some salary while figuring out how to sell. And it was joining Nice that brought Evra a return of fate that he himself did not expect. Evra has been playing as a striker since he played football on the streets of the slums of Paris. He played as a striker when training with the youth training team, and he also played as a striker in Marsola and Monza. When he joined Nice, he also joined as a striker. However, in a game in Nice, because the team's main left back was injured and could not persist, and Evra was the only left-footed player on the bench, the head coach of Nice could only let Evra temporarily take over. I thought Evra would play badly, but in the end, Evra, who was placed at the left back, only played for 15 minutes, and then his life was enlightened. Evra's sense of space was greatly expanded in the left back position. Evra played with the sprint and dribbling of a striker. Nice, which was originally 3 goals behind, chased 4 goals in a row and reversed the opponent with Evra's breakthrough and instigation from the left side. The opponents were all stunned. They had never seen such a left back, and they had never seen a left back with a striker behind. After this game, Nice's head coach immediately positioned Evra as a left back. In the following schedule, Evra also started as a left back and became the engine of Nice. Evra quickly became famous in Ligue 2. And in Nice's last game, he scored the winning golden goal for Nice to be promoted to Ligue 1. In just half a season, Evra went from a garbage striker with the lowest weekly salary to a hot pursuit object of the Giants. Evra's life is simply a template for a cool article. The peak is the enlightenment. From now on, the world has one less rubbish striker and one less rubbish salesman, but one more world-class left back. Chapter 558. This is the strongest central defender combination in the world, bar none. Manchester United starting two central defenders are number 5 Rio Ferdinand and number 15 Nemanja Vidic. The central defender combination of these two people is definitely the strongest central defender combination in the world. Rio Ferdinand is the elder brother of Anton Ferdinand of Everton, but his fame and strength are much greater than Anton Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand is 29 years old, 189 centimeters tall and weighs 89 kilograms. As a central defender, this physical fitness is simply invincible. And not only physical fitness, Rio Ferdinand's skills are also very comprehensive, with a wide range of defense, high confrontation, excellent position sense, excellent handling of high balls, and a good pass. Generally speaking, a central defender can be considered an excellent central defender if he has two of these advantages, and Rio Ferdinand has almost everything, and he is also hard-working and iron-blooded on the field. He is almost a template for a perfect central defender. The only drawback is that he was impulsive when he was young, and occasionally his brain would short-circuit, resulting in insufficient stability. But as he gets older and has more experience, brain short circuits rarely happen. Rio Ferdinand is also called the new Bobby Moore by the Red Devils fans. This is because Rio Ferdinand's playing style and experience are similar to Bobby Moore. They both come from the West Ham United Hammers, have excellent physical conditions, and their headers and defensive skills are first class. They also have the ability of a central defender to dribble the ball forward. In addition, Rio Ferdinand likes to tweet first about everything, so he has a more familiar nickname, Twitter Emperor. During Rio Ferdinand's peak period playing for Manchester United, he was definitely the recognized first central defender in the Premier League. But Manchester United's mortal enemy Leeds United never thinks so. Rio Ferdinand and his younger brother Anton Ferdinand were both born in civilian families in London. When they were young, they were sent to art classes by their father to learn ballet for a period of time. Later, they had to give up because they grew too fast. Otherwise, the Rio Ferdinand brothers should be ballet dancers wearing tights now. Rio Ferdinand eventually chose football, but his football journey was not smooth at the beginning. He failed to pass the assessment of several youth training camps. Finally, he passed the trial of West Ham United and became a member of the West Ham United youth training team. When he first came to the West Ham United youth team, Rio Ferdinand played as a striker, but was soon transformed into a defender by the coach. It turned out that this was a very timely choice, and Rio Ferdinand did not take many detours. In 1995, Rio Ferdinand, who was only 17 years old, was promoted to the first team of West Ham United because of his outstanding performance in the youth team, and quickly became the main central defender. In 2000, Rio Ferdinand transferred from West Ham United to the White Rose Leeds United for £18 million, breaking the Premier League's historical transfer price. You know, generally speaking, forwards and midfielders are the most expensive to transfer, but Rio Ferdinand was able to break the highest transfer record as a central defender, which is enough to show Rio Ferdinand's strength and prospects at the time. Facts have proved that Leeds United was not wrong, and the £18 million spent was also very worthwhile. On February 13, 2001, Leeds United defeated Anderlecht Football Club 2-1 in the UEFA Champions League group stage. Ferdinand started in the game and completed his Champions League debut. On April 4, Leeds United defeated Deportivo La Coruña 3-0 in the first round of the UEFA Champions League quarter-finals. Ferdinand scored his first goal since joining Leeds United in the 66th minute of the game. Immediately afterwards, on April 13, Leeds United defeated Liverpool 2-1 in the 33rd round of the Premier League. Ferdinand helped Leeds United open the scoring in the 4th minute of the game. In the 2002-01 season, Ferdinand played 23 times in the Premier League for Leeds United and scored 2 goals. He played 7 times in the UEFA Champions League and scored 1 goal, helping Leeds United reach the semi-finals. In 2001, Rio Ferdinand's second year at the White Rose Club, the White Rose's top management couldn't wait to make Rio Ferdinand the captain of Leeds United. The White Rose fans of Leeds United were crazy about Rio Ferdinand. However, in 2002, Leeds United had to sell Rio Ferdinand due to its own financial reasons. What's more, Rio Ferdinand chose to join Leeds United's mortal enemy, the Red Rose, the Red Devils Manchester United. The fans of Leeds United were all heartbroken. In July 2002, Rio Ferdinand once again broke the All England transfer record he created, transferring from Leeds United to their mortal enemy Manchester United for £30 million. This transfer also made Rio Ferdinand the most expensive defender in the world football at that time. At that time, it was unimaginable to buy a defender for £30 million. Most people think that Manchester United's top management is angry with Leeds United and deliberately uses money to humiliate their mortal enemy. But in fact, this is not the case. The addition of Rio Ferdinand has made Manchester United even more powerful, greatly improving its defensive strength and helping Manchester United create one brilliant achievement after another. In general, Rio Ferdinand is definitely the ceiling of central defenders. Unfortunately, his peak period is a bit short, and he was injured frequently in the later period, which also greatly affected Rio Ferdinand's strength and development. Vidic, the central defender who partnered with Rio Ferdinand in Manchester United, is nicknamed Vida and Borkenkontrap. Just this nickname can feel Vidic's mental strength and ferocity. Nemanja Vidic is 29 years old, 188 centimeters tall and weighs 82 kilograms. In terms of physical condition alone, Vidic is slightly weaker than Rio Ferdinand. However, compared with Rio, Vidic's most outstanding feature is not his fierce defense, but his tough spirit as a Serbian. Rio Ferdinand was the vice-captain of the England national team in 2008. Later, Terry was stripped of the captain's armband after the incident with his friend's wife. Rio Ferdinand was promoted to the captain of the England team in 2010. However, in Manchester United, the captain of Manchester United is Vidic, a Serbian. Because Vidic's mental attributes are invincible, his influence on the field is the first. Moreover, compared with Rio Ferdinand, although Vidic has obvious shortcomings, his strengths are still very long. Rio Ferdinand is a central defender who is good at predicting and blocking positions. Van Dijk and Rio Ferdinand have many similarities in this respect. Vidic likes to rush up to intercept, confront, and compete for the top. With Vidic's body, he will usually succeed, but if he faces Messi, who is small and agile, or Drogba, who is stronger than Vidic, and Vidic's turning speed is slow, this rash rush will cause a huge loophole in Manchester United's defense. However, on the other hand, how many Messis are there in this world? How many Drogbas are there? So, Vidic basically walks sideways in the Premier League. Ferguson wrote in his autobiography, "The first point in our record of Vidic is his courage and determination. He is good at tackling and has a strong ability to clear the ball with his head. He is exactly the kind of typical English central defender we are looking for." What is a typical English central defender? It is a savage, rough, fierce central defender who crushes the opponent with his body. Although Vidic is slightly inferior to the world's #1 defender Rio Ferdinand in terms of turning speed and footwork, Vidic is far superior to Rio Ferdinand in physical confrontation and even in the oppressive expression before the confrontation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 559, The Gatekeeper Type Goalkeeper Who Gets More Powerful as He Gets Older. Manchester United's starting goalkeeper is Edwin van der Sar, a world-class goalkeeper nicknamed Ice Rabbit and Calm Cat. Van der Sar, now 40 years old, is 197 centimeters tall and weighs 83 kilograms. Although he is already old, his reaction is still very fast. The goalkeeper position is indeed getting better with age. However, there are probably only two people in the world who can still hold the starting goalkeeper position of a top team at the age of 40. One is the Dutch goalkeeper Van der Sar and the other is the Italian teenager Buffon. Van der Sar is a goalkeeper type goalkeeper. The so-called goalkeeper type means that he can be both a goalkeeper and a halfback. Van der Sar's defensive range, reaction speed, and passing ability are absolutely world class. Moreover, Van der Sar has experienced ups and downs and has become stronger over time and has extremely rich experience on the field. Like Scholes, Van der Sar has already decided to retire after the end of the 2010-2011 season. Although this game will not be his last game as the main goalkeeper, for the fanatical Manchester United fans, it is indeed one less game to watch. Similar to Evra and Rio Ferdinand, Van der Sar also had an offensive heart when he played football, since he was a child. Van der Sar was also a striker at first, but later he grew too fast, so he was transformed into a goalkeeper by the coach of the youth training team. This is also the starting point of Van der Sar as a doorman goalkeeper. It must be said that Van der Sar's transformation is much luckier than Evra, and even luckier than Rio Ferdinand. Van der Sar's transformation took almost no effort, and everything came naturally. In contrast, Evra was hit and bleeding, fell into self-doubt, and almost gave up playing football. Rio Ferdinand also went through several twists and turns, and finally joined the West Ham United youth training team, before starting the painful transformation process. Although the three of them are now world class, Van der Sar's luck is obviously better than Evra and Rio Ferdinand. Of course, Van der Sar had to start from scratch, to change from a striker to a goalkeeper, and as he practiced, he couldn't help but rush out with a ball and use himself as a striker. Before the age of 20, Van der Sar was completely unremarkable in the goalkeeper position. If you compare his performance before the age of 20 with that of Casillas before the age of 20, Van der Sar is completely incomparable. However, Van der Sar was very lucky. His youth training team was Ajax, a star-making factory, and the coach of Ajax at the time was Van Gaal, a chef known for his ability to judge people. They both had the same last name, Van. Well, not the last name, but Van Gaal did favor Van der Sar. Moreover, Van Gaal was also famous for promoting young players, and Van der Sar at that time happened to be a young and energetic player. At that time, Van der Sar's biggest competitor was Stanley Menzo, the team's #1 goalkeeper. Menzo's strength was very good, but in the League Cup final, Menzo made a super huge mistake, which was a more annoying mistake than Karius's later mistake. Ajax fans could not tolerate such a low-level mistake, so Van Gaal immediately promoted Van der Sar to the main goalkeeper. So, Van der Sar, who got the opportunity, showed his world-class strength. As a striker, he had good footwork. He could not only send accurate passes to his teammates, but also rush out of the penalty area to handle the ball calmly. With him on the court, Ajax seemed to have an extra central defender. As long as Van der Sar did not encounter injuries, he would be Van Gaal's first choice for the goalkeeper position. With the help of Van der Sar, Van Gaal's team not only dominated the Dutch league, but also won the Champions League. Van der Sar rarely makes major mistakes, and has saved many wonderful and fatal shots. He can also rush out, to act as a defender, and send accurate long passes. Moreover, Van der Sar is also good at getting into the opponent's mindset. Such a gatekeeper type goalkeeper can definitely be called a world-class goalkeeper. However, as a goalkeeper, Van der Sar has a fatal shortcoming, that is, saving penalties. Van der Sar's ability to save penalties is also notoriously poor. In the World Cup, as long as the Dutch team can be forced into a penalty shootout, it is basically equivalent to defeating the Dutch team. Because of the shortcoming of saving penalties, Van der Sar cannot become the world's best goalkeeper. However, in addition to saving penalties, Van der Sar's other aspects are world class. Van der Sar is also a player who has experienced ups and downs. When he became famous in Ajax, he was spotted by Juventus, a giant in the Serie A league known as the Little World Cup at the time. Unfortunately, in the 2 seasons when Van der Sar was the main goalkeeper in Juventus, Juventus not only lost the cup championship, but also lost the league championship. As a goalkeeper, Van der Sar naturally became Juventus's scapegoat. Later, Juventus bought young player Buffon by breaking the goalkeeper transfer record and sold Van der Sar to Fulham of the Premier League for £5 million. At this time, Van der Sar was already 31 years old. Everyone was not optimistic about Van der Sar. They all thought that Van der Sar would stay in Fulham for 2 years and then retire. However, Van der Sar slapped everyone in the face. He played very well in the Premier League. He proved that Juventus was blind with his strength as a goalkeeper. 4 years later, in 2005, Van der Sar was signed by the giant Manchester United at the age of 35, and he firmly occupied the position of Manchester United's starting goalkeeper until he retired at the age of 40 or 41. In Ferguson's words, he didn't feel that Van der Sar was old at all, nor did he feel that Van der Sar's state declined. He even felt that Van der Sar could play at such a high level for another year or two. Van der Sar chose to retire at the peak of his life. It must be said that this was also a very smart decision. Van der Sar's most glorious moment at Manchester United was when Manchester United won the Premier League Championship in 2008 and played against Chelsea in the Champions League final. At that time, the two sides tied 1-1 in the regular game, and there was no goal in the extra time. The two sides entered an exciting penalty shootout. According to the principle of a big game with Van der Sar must lose, Chelsea's players have begun to prepare to celebrate. However, when playing the fourth round of penalties, Chelsea's captain Terry slipped and kicked the ball away when facing Van der Sar. Van der Sar finally relied on Terry's mistake to raise his eyebrows in the penalty shootout. Manchester United also won the Champions League. In short, except for his poor ability to save penalties, Van der Sar can definitely be regarded as a world-class goalkeeper in other aspects, and a world-class goalkeeper with a very long peak period. In terms of peak period, he is second only to young player Buffon. In today's FA Cup final, although Manchester United did not send out all the main players, at least 80% of the main players were sent out. This is considered quite important for Manchester United, who still have to fight in the Premier League and the Champions League semi-finals and finals. Beep. With the referee's whistle, the FA Cup match officially began. Chapter 560 Little P's performance. Guran's heavy artillery long-range shot. Southampton kicked off first. Lallana, who was in the center circle, knocked the ball back to Guran in the backcourt, and then slowly moved towards Manchester United's half. Guran was not in a hurry after getting the ball, but patiently passed the ball back and forth with Lambert and Mikel in the backcourt, waiting for Manchester United to press forward, and then looking for opportunities. This is also a typical defensive counter-attack style of play. Defensive counter-attack is not a tactic that is only used when the opponent is attacking. When you have the ball and the opponent uses high pressure, defensive counter-attack is also one of the very effective coping methods. Rooney, the fat man, rushed towards Guran, ready to use his body to resist the interception. Guran was not in a hurry to confront Rooney, but immediately transferred the ball to the left and handed it to Chamberlain, who had already rushed forward. Then, Guran started quickly, brushed Rooney's shoulder, and accelerated to run without the ball towards Manchester United's half. Rooney didn't have time to slow down and turn around, and Guran easily got rid of Rooney. Rooney didn't chase Guran. After all, as a centre forward, he didn't have too many defensive responsibilities. Moreover, Ferguson had already made tactical arrangements. Park Ji-sung was in charge of guarding Guran. When Guran was about to cross the center line, Park Ji-sung quickly came up to him, with harassing movements on his hands and feet. Guran did not tolerate Park Ji-sung at all. While he was harassing Park Ji-sung with his body, he reached out to Chamberlain for the ball. Chamberlain was being defended by Nani and could not break through. Seeing Guran getting in place, he immediately used his best emergency stop to beat Nani with a time difference, and then knocked the ball horizontally to the middle. However, Manchester United's midfield was not loose. Fletch cut in from the middle and shoveled the ball halfway with a falling tackle. Guran could have run over and taken the ball away before French kicked out, but Park Ji-sung followed behind Guran and kept pulling him with his hands. Fletch completed the tackle because he was half a beat late. Fortunately, Fletch only shoveled the ball to Southampton's half and did not get the ball. The next second, Lambert quickly retreated to chase the ball, acting as the defensive midfielder behind Guran. However, Hernandez's speed and body movements were obviously faster than Lambert's. As soon as Lambert touched the ball, before he could pass the ball, Hernandez floated past Lambert and took Lambert's ball away with his foot. Lambert turned around and chased after Hernandez, but Hernandez was too fast, and Lambert couldn't catch up even with his breastfeeding strength. The other players of Manchester United pressed forward immediately. At this time, Guran had to retreat to chase and assist in defense. Mikel saw the position and rushed up to intercept Hernandez. With Hernandez's physical condition, he was no match for Mikel. Hernandez then turned his toes inward in front of Mikel, and then turned his toes inward again, and passed Mikel in a playful manner. The fans of Manchester United were all boiling. As soon as the game started, Hernandez showed them the splendor of Manchester United. Mikel couldn't stand such humiliation, and immediately slid from behind to greet him. But Little P was too fast. Mikel's fierce sliding tackle didn't even hit him. Just when Little P was about to continue to dribble towards Southampton's half, Guran sprinted back like lightning, and the central defender Font also came up to double team Little P. Little P wanted to change his line with his left and right feet, but Guran directly blocked Little P's hips, making it impossible for Little P to change his line and speed up. Little P never expected that Guran could chase him from so far behind, and he blocked his position as soon as he came up. Facing Guran's strong physical pressure, Little P could only barely kick and pass the ball directly into Southampton's penalty area. Rooney, who had been prepared for a long time, rushed to the top and headed the ball into Southampton's net with great force. The Manchester United fans at the scene were all crazy. 1 minute into the game, Little P assisted Rooney and scored a dreamy and smooth goal. But for this ball, the linesman raised the flag. Rooney was in an offside position when he received the ball. Southampton's offside tactic was successful. The referee cancelled the goal, and Manchester United fans immediately yelled and cursed. Southampton fans, on the other hand, celebrated happily as if they had survived a disaster. Although they escaped a disaster, it must be said that Manchester United's attack was too sharp, and this was not Manchester United's most proud attack method, as Manchester United's two wingers had not really started yet. Southampton's offside method could easily be cracked by Manchester United's two wings flying down and crossing. The game continued. Southampton's goalkeeper Davis kicked the goal kick. Davis still passed the ball to Guran. As soon as Guran got the ball, Park Ji-sung came up and entangled Guran like a dogskin plaster. However, Guran did not take Park Ji-sung too seriously, nor did he respond to Park Ji-sung's small harassment with overly obvious actions, but continued to sprint with the ball. Park Ji-sung was confident that he could defend Guran, but soon, Park Ji-sung was used by Guran to change his line with an emergency stop. In the 4th minute of the game, after Guran made a wall-to-wall cooperation with Lambert, he shook off Park Ji-sung and went straight into Manchester United's half. Lambert took advantage of the fact that he was not marked and sent a half-high lob pass to Guran. Park Ji-sung and Fletch came to double-team Guran. Guran stopped and passed, and in front of Park Ji-sung and Fletch, he dodged a passing channel. Lallana in front immediately moved to the right side of the penalty area. At least 3 Manchester United players blocked the connection between Guran and Lallana. It must be said that Manchester United did a very good job in defense, and there was almost no good opportunity to pass the ball. However, Guran did not hesitate or pause at all, and he took on Fletch and Park Ji-sung and shot directly from a long distance. This was a heavy artillery whirled wave from 35 meters away, and it was under the high-pressure defense of Fletch and Park Ji-sung, and the Overlord shot hard like a bow. The football whistled towards Manchester United's goal like an electromagnetically boosted cannonball. Calm Cat van der Sar was very calm, quickly retreated, stretched out his long arms, and lifted Guran's sudden heavy long-range shot over the crossbar in an extreme way. All the Southampton fans couldn't help but Manchester United fans' hearts were in their throats. Guran really dared to shoot. Before the game, all the major media and experts thought that Manchester United would play against Southampton, but unexpectedly, Coach Adkins adjusted the tactics this time. The entire Southampton team still carried out defensive counter-attacks, but Guran's position was moved from the back waist to the front waist. Manchester United's response strategy was to use Park Ji-sung to defend Guran. This strategy was absolutely correct, and it reflects Ferguson's foresight, but the problem was that Park Ji-sung could defend Messi, but not Guran. Once Guran was allowed to hold the ball and constantly try long shots in the area between the back waist and the front waist, the consequences would be very serious for Manchester United. Now, Southampton gets the first corner. Chapter 561. Guran confronts Fat Lou. Manchester United's penalty area was full of people. Goalkeeper Van der Sar had to defend Guran's direct shot, while also defending Guran from performing with Lallana. However, this time, Lallana did not run up to perform a tactical show with Guran. After all, tactical shows are okay if you do them once or twice, but they won't work if you do them too many times. Especially facing a cautious team like Manchester United, it is basically impossible to score through a tactical show that has already been exposed. Guran glanced at Van der Sar's position and then kicked out a beautiful arc like a crescent moon. With the gasps of Manchester United fans, the football passed over the wall of people and fell to the weak area at the back point. JD made a back point cover. However, Rio Ferdinand obviously reacted faster. He stepped back, jumped up half a beat ahead of JD, and while blocking JD's scramble, he passed the ball out of Manchester United's penalty area. Little P was ready to fight for the ball and launch a quick counter-attack. Mikel made a direct sliding tackle, knocking Little P to the ground with the ball and the person. The referee blew the whistle and sentenced Mikel for a foul. However, because Mikel tackled the ball first, he did not show Mikel a yellow card, but only gave a verbal warning and awarded the ball to Manchester United. Mikel's tackle was very critical. If it weren't for Mikel's tackle, with the speed and flexibility of Little P, he would have counter-attacked all the way to Southampton's penalty area. Mikel's foul also broke Manchester United's counter-attack and gave Southampton players the opportunity to quickly return to defense. Southampton's offensive wave was also over, but for Manchester United fans, they were still uncontrollably recalling Guran's crescent-shaped corner kick. Manchester United's set-piece defense is very strong, but Guran's crescent-shaped corner kick is really beautiful. The last time Manchester United fans saw such a beautiful crescent-shaped corner kick was when Beckham was still playing for Manchester United. The game continues. Rio Ferdinand drove the ball to his own left side. Giggs retreated slightly, steadily controlled the ball under his feet, and then started at high speed and broke through along the left side. Southampton's defense line immediately shrank to the vicinity of their own penalty area and did not engage in fearless confrontation with Giggs on the side. In this regard, Southampton was very smart. First of all, Giggs's physical energy is difficult to consume. Although he is 37 years old, he sleeps with his wife and then with a female model. After sleeping with a female model, he can still find time to sleep with his brother's wife. His physical fitness can be seen. Giggs's breakthrough ability is even more powerful. Southampton's right forward Schneiderlin can't defend Giggs at all. If you want to defend Giggs, at least Schneiderlin, Lambert, and Guran must form a triangle double team to prevent Giggs from breaking through. It is not cost effective for Southampton to waste 3 defenders to prevent Giggs from entering the front court. Therefore, Southampton's strategy is that, since they can't defend Giggs's breakthrough on the wing, they simply don't defend it, let Manchester United pass quickly on the wing, and then fight a positional battle. During this period of time, the close training of Southampton's main players mainly practiced the iron barrel defense of retreating to their own penalty area. Of course, not everyone retreated to the penalty area. For example, Lallana was free near the center circle, waiting for an opportunity. Chamberlain on the left side was also in a position to respond to the counter-attack at any time. At this moment, Giggs advanced all the way to the front of Southampton's left side without hindrance, and Manchester United's midfielders and front court players basically pressed into Southampton's penalty area. Giggs's ability to break through the wing is very strong, but Giggs's ability to cut inside is average. It can't be said to be bad, but compared with his own bottom, his ability to cut inside is indeed a little worse. Giggs changed his line back and forth near the bottom line to look for opportunities, while Southampton's defense was airtight. In desperation, Giggs could only open a safe distance and then pass the ball into the penalty area. Rooney jumped high. Guran also jumped up at the same time, blocking Rooney's body. Although Luziapang, a physical tank, is not very tall, he is extremely strong and confrontational. However, after Guran went through the baptism of a whole professional game in English Football League 1, his strength attribute has reached 92 points. The strength attribute has also reached 95 points. The physical attribute has reached a terrifying 98 points. The physical attribute has also reached 91 points. Such physical conditions make Guran not afraid at all when confronting Lu Xiaopang, and even obviously have the upper hand. Rooney was hit by Guran, and his center of gravity was immediately unbalanced in the air, and he lost the opportunity to compete for the header. At the same time, Park Ji-sung also rushed up urgently and pulled Guran with his hands in the chaos. Guran was also pulled to the ground and pressed heavily on Lu Xiaopang. There was chaos in the Southampton penalty area. Fortunately, Font kicked in time and cleared the ball out of the penalty area in a very extreme way. But the ball is not dead. Giggs on the periphery ran quickly, picked up the football, and then directly made another more threatening cross. At this time, Rooney and Guran were both lying on the grass. Guran wanted to struggle, but was deliberately clamped by Lu Xiaopang with his legs. Lu Xiaopang was still very strong. Guran couldn't get rid of it for a while. Nash, who was on the right side of the penalty area, flexibly got rid of the defense, jumped up and headed the ball into the goal. Goalkeeper Davis was very focused and in a very good position, holding Nash's shot in his arms with both hands. Manchester United's almost crazy continuous cross attack finally stopped. Southampton fans covered their hearts and breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Xiaopang also loosened his legs, turned over and climbed up from the grass. When Guran climbed up, he spit on the grass. Lu Xiaopang was immediately angry. Guran also stared at Lu Xiaopang without flinching. The two of them had a posture of "What are you looking at? What's wrong with you looking at me?" The players on both sides were also on edge and could fight at any time. In the end, Lu Xiaopang said nothing and ran away with a gloomy face. There were not many players who dared to be tough in front of Lu Xiaopang, but Guran had the qualifications to be tough just by virtue of his strength in knocking down Rooney with physical confrontation. The game continued. In the first 10 minutes, Manchester United almost had all the advantages. Giggs and Nash, the two wings, hardly encountered any effective interceptions, so Manchester United completely controlled the midfield and the rhythm of the game. However, Southampton's iron barrel defense prevented Manchester United several fatal crosses from turning into goals. And Southampton was not blindly defending. As long as there was a chance, Southampton would immediately counter-attack through Guran. Although neither side had scored a goal, the fast pace of the game made the 90,000 fans at the scene feel suffocated. Chapter 562. Pendulum Passing. Guran single-handedly beats world-class central defender Vidic. Although Southampton's defensive tactics look ugly, and they don't have much ball possession, they make it difficult for the powerful Manchester United team. Although Manchester United's formations and tactics are changeable, the changes are only on the surface. No matter how much they change, they are nothing more than two wings flying together. The core use of two wings flying together is to break through the side defense, or pass back in the bottom triangle, or cut inside. The purpose is to tear the opponent's defense line. But Southampton's shameless retreating defensive tactics completely let Manchester United's two wings fly together, but kept the integrity of the defensive formation near their own penalty area, so that Manchester United's two wings flying together had only advancement but no tearing. Manchester United can't get in. No matter how many external actions there are, it's useless if you can't get in. In the first 15 minutes of the game, Giggs sent a total of 6 crosses, and Nani also cut inside 3 times on the right, but Giggs' crosses were basically destroyed by Guran and JD, and Nana's cuts were also intercepted by Guran and Mikel. Southampton also took this opportunity to launch 3 quick counter-attacks. Although Lallana and Chamberlain's shots were saved by Van der Sar, Guran's long pass counter-attack was really sharp, and it also made Manchester United fans sweat. Park Ji-sung, who was responsible for marking Guran, was almost dead to Guran, but Park Ji-sung was not Guran's opponent in terms of physical confrontation or speed reaction. In the first 15 minutes, Guran sprinted back and forth in the midfield and backcourt, running and confronting almost non-stop. Park Ji-sung was already exhausted just by running with Guran. If Park Ji-sung has 3 lungs, then Guran has 10 lungs. However, it must be said that with Park Ji-sung's dog skin plaster, it is still difficult for Guran to counter-attack with the ball. Once Park Ji-sung slows down with a small move, then with Manchester United's speed of returning to defense, Guran's first opportunity will be gone. Therefore, if you want to completely start the counter-attack mode, you must first find a way to get rid of Park Ji-sung, this dog skin plaster. The dog walking method is effective, but it is not obvious or direct enough. Guran thought about it secretly in his heart, and then began to gradually reduce his speed, pretending that his physical strength was not enough. Park Ji-sung was overjoyed, and immediately followed closely. The game was in the 19th minute. Third master ever dribbled the ball to the top of the arc of the Southampton penalty area. Guran intercepted it sideways, and raised his foot to block the ball into the unmanned area. Evra immediately turned around and chased back. Guran also accelerated to sprint and chase. Park Ji-sung, who was following Guran, also threw his legs and chased after him. Guran was not in a hurry to get the ball. He first blocked the pursuit route of third master Evra and squeezed Evra, who was only 173 centimeters, with his strong body. Evra felt that he was crushed by a heavy tank. Evra didn't even hold on for 3 seconds, and he lost his center of gravity and fell to the ground. Seeing this, Park Ji-sung gave up sticking to Guran and turned to chase the ownerless ball. As long as he could get the ball first and pass it into the penalty area, Park Ji-sung would have done a great job. However, when Park Ji-sung was about to touch the ball, Guran slid down and touched the ball first. Park Ji-sung didn't have time to retract his legs, and the whole person was shoveled into the air by Guran. And Guran's shin guard was also stepped on by Park Ji-sung. Park Ji-sung fell heavily to the ground, holding his ankle with a twisted face. In this wave, it seemed that Park Ji-sung stepped on Guran, but in fact, Guran used the impact force to shovel Park Ji-sung's stepping force. What's more, Guran's physical fitness is 91 points, and Iron Body, Iron Man has also been promoted to +8, so this level of confrontation is no problem for Guran. And Park Ji-sung's pain is not fake. His ankle must be injured under Guran's fierce impact. The referee blew the whistle to signal Manchester United's team doctor to enter the field and help Park Ji-sung off the field for emergency treatment. At this time, the field temporarily became a 11 versus 10 situation for Southampton. However, the referee awarded the ball to Manchester United. Evra, the third master, took the free kick in the midfield, and Evra signaled his teammates in the front court to press forward as much as possible. Evra kicked a long pass with the outside of his left foot, and Rooney pushed away from who was defending him and rushed to the landing point of the football at the first time. Guran had already predicted Evra's passing route, and with a rapid sprint, he blocked Rooney. Rooney rushed hard to hit Guran, but he couldn't move at all. Mikel took the opportunity to intercept Evra's pass, and then made a short pass to Guran. Giggs immediately rushed over to intercept and scramble, and Rooney also pulled behind Guran. However, Guran started very quickly, very fast. Guran directly shook off Rooney's pull, and in front of Giggs, he made a Marcel turn, and quickly touched the ball with his heel, and poked it. Giggs was penetrated. By the time Giggs could react, Guran had already quickly turned behind Giggs through the Marcel turn. Giggs was stunned. Guran passed the ball through the crotch to himself 1 second later. After Guran got the ball, he immediately started to play like the son of Wyndon the King of Highbury, and dribbled the ball straight into Manchester United's half. Most of Manchester United's defensive players were pressed in Southampton's half. When they realized the danger, Guran had already dribbled the ball through the center line. Manchester United's fans were immediately worried, and Southampton's fans cheered wildly. This was the most exciting moment for them since the start of the game. At this time, the world's top defender Rio Ferdinand quickly retreated to defense while compressing Guran's breakthrough space and helping goalkeeper Van der Sar share the pressure of goalkeeping. Another world-class defender Vidic rushed directly towards Guran, trying to intercept Guran through his body. Even if he couldn't intercept Guran, as long as he could slow down Guran's breakthrough speed, that would be enough. Just as Vidic rushed towards Guran, Guran suddenly passed the ball to his left foot, and then the center of gravity of his knees and lower body moved to the left. Vidic immediately reacted and followed to block Guran's left side. But the next moment, Duran's upper body did not move, and the center of gravity of his knees and lower body quickly shifted to the right side, and the football under his feet also shifted to the right side. Vidic was stunned, and then subconsciously pulled back his center of gravity to block Duran's right side. At this time, Vidic's center of gravity could no longer be controlled, because the speed of the center of gravity change was too fast, and changing the center of gravity during such a high-speed sprint was very unstable. In the next moment, Duran's upper body remained motionless, but the bull shifted back to the left side, and the weight of his knees and lower body also shifted to the left side. Pendulum pass. Vidic screamed and fell to the grass. Duran completed a Ronaldo-style pendulum pass, shook off Vidic who was lying on the ground, and drove straight into Manchester United's penalty area. Chapter 563 Southampton scored first. Manchester United fans were hit hard. Seeing Duran's pendulum dribbling, the fans at the scene couldn't help but exclaimed. Not only did the Southampton fans feast their eyes, but even the hostile Manchester United fans couldn't help but stand up and stare. This set of dribbling moves is really brilliant, and it almost perfectly replicates Ronaldo's alien-like operation. Everyone can imagine that after this game, the video of Duran eating Vidic alone will inevitably see a surge in clicks, and Duran's value will inevitably reach a new peak. Even if this one-on-one breakthrough failed to score, Duran's replica of the pendulum dribbling alone was enough to make Duran famous in the entire football world. After Duran broke into the penalty area, Rio Ferdinand came up to compress Duran's shooting space. Duran turned half-turn to protect the ball, resisted Rio Ferdinand, and pulled the ball to the left side of Manchester United's penalty area. This position is also the position that Duran is most familiar with, a bit similar to the Pirro area. Of course, it is very difficult to shoot from this position. Van der Sar guarded the line very tightly, and with the compression defense of Rio Ferdinand, the world's top defender, Duran had almost no chance to shoot. Facing Rio Ferdinand's pressing defense and Vidic's desperate return defense, Duran half-turned to protect the ball, and then seized the opportunity to pass the ball behind Rio Ferdinand with his heel. Rio Ferdinand was dumbfounded. Goalkeeper Kat van der Sar was also dumbfounded. For this ball, they all thought that Duran would choose to shoot himself. After all, Duran had twice shot directly from a distance after half-time, and had unlimited firing rights. However, they never expected that Duran attracted all their attention and knocked the ball from the left side of the penalty area to the right side of the penalty area. Lallana, who was not guarded, quickly inserted in from the back row. This ball was not offside. Lallana's running speed was pulled up to the limit. Without waiting for Van der Sar to move to the right, Lallana rushed to the football. Without even stopping to adjust, he directly touched the ball and shot it vigorously. The football passed quickly along the grass and headed straight for the Manchester United goal. At this moment, all Manchester United fans held their breath. All Southampton fans also held their breath. Van der Sar jumped up with all his strength in the far corner of the goal, lying sideways with his hands stretched to the extreme to save the ball. But the football was half a beat ahead of time and shot into the net with great force. The ball went in. The ball went in. After Manchester United's 20 minutes of crazy bombardment, Southampton, who had a possession rate of less than 20%, relied on Duran's interception, a one-stop breakthrough counter-attack, and a cross-pass in the penalty area, and Lallana, who was unguarded in the back row, scored a goal. The score on the big screen of Wembley Stadium was immediately rewritten as Manchester United 0:1 Southampton. All the Southampton fans at the scene were crazy. Manchester United fans were stunned and couldn't believe such a score. In terms of achievement awards, overall strength, player value, and the situation on the field, Manchester United completely crushed Southampton, but Southampton took the lead. Of course, Manchester United underestimated the enemy. Even though Manchester United already attached great importance to Duran, they still did not attach enough importance to him. Moreover, this goal loss was also related to the disadvantage of the number of people on the field. Park Ji-sung's temporary injury treatment resulted in no one being able to fill in and entangle Duran like a dogskin plaster, which also led to Duran being able to rush into Manchester United's penalty area with the ball in one breath. attracting the attention of the two central defenders and the world-class goalkeeper, and passing the ball to Lallana, who then scored. Ferguson chewed gum expressionlessly on the field, but his heart was already in turmoil. He had thought in advance that Southampton, which had Guran, would not be easy to play, but he did not expect Southampton to score first. In Ferguson's view, Manchester United would definitely win the FA Cup final. The key was how to win. Ferguson certainly hopes that Manchester United can easily beat Southampton, so that Manchester United can go all out in the next two Premier League life and death battles and the Champions League final with Barcelona. If it is very difficult to beat Southampton, and even the main players such as Berbatov have to be used, then the cost of this game will be a bit high. But now, Ferguson suddenly realized that this is not a question of winning easily or winning with difficulty, but a question of whether it can be won. Southampton has defeated Everton, Manchester City, Tottenham, Sunderland, Liverpool, and has also tied and eliminated Chelsea. Now it has scored a goal in the FA Cup. If it continues like this, the final outcome is really hard to say. Now, the top priority is to stabilize the mentality of Manchester United players and not be impatient. In addition, the damn Park Ji-sung must also return to the field as soon as possible and continue to stare at Guran, not letting Guran perform. The game resumed, and Park Ji-sung returned to the field with a bandage on his ankle. It has to be said that Park Ji-sung is indeed a tough guy. He did not ask to be substituted, even though his ankle was injured. Instead, he continued to play after applying medicine. Manchester United, who lost the first goal, launched a crazy counter-attack. Southampton, on the other hand, followed the content of the previous training on the training ground and shrunk its defense with all its strength. The iron bucket formation is ugly, but it is effective. Especially when facing a world-class team like Manchester United. Using the iron bucket formation to make Manchester United's offensive helpless is also a kind of pleasure. In the 23rd minute, Giggs passed the ball back to the penalty area from the left. Guran blocked Rooney, and JD took the opportunity to grab the first landing point and completed the header clearance. Then in the 26th minute, Giggs was on the left again, sending a highly penetrating pass to the Southampton team's small penalty area. Fletch took the ball and shot directly. The football rubbed the post and flew out of the bottom line. In the 32nd minute, Nani broke through on the right, and Little P ran out of space in the right penalty area to prepare for the response, but Nani did not pass the ball to Little P, who was in a better position, but directly rushed to the most densely populated area of Southampton's defense line. Lambert and Hammond came up to block Nani at the same time. Before Mikel arrived, Nani leaned on Hammond, and then his feet seemed to trip on an air wall and fell to the ground. The referee immediately blew the whistle, indicating that Hammond had committed a foul. Hammond spread his hands and complained with a face full of injustice. Nani lay on the grass, covering his face and rolling towards the penalty area line. Chamberlain was so angry that he pushed Nani out of the penalty area. The players on both sides were on edge and a conflict could break out at any time. The referee immediately showed Chamberlain a yellow card and awarded Manchester United a free kick within the arc. The Southampton players were very dissatisfied with this decision. Nani was also very dissatisfied with the lack of a penalty kick and quickly got up to complain to the referee. The referee still insisted on his decision. Southampton could only urgently form a human wall. Luziana Pang, covered in mud, stood at the free kick penalty spot. Chapter 564. Park Ji-sung is injured and leaves the field. Rooney's free kick level is actually very rough. Rooney's advantage lies in his impact. He will never suffer a physical loss when confronting the opposing defender, and he is very good at long-range shooting. However, being good at long-range shooting does not mean being good at free kicks. It's just that Manchester United now has no free kick masters, except Rooney and Giggs. Giggs can also take free kicks. Giggs' left-footed free kick can even create a crescent-shaped arc like Beckham's, but the accuracy of Giggs' free kicks is relatively poor. As a centre forward, Rooney naturally enjoys more free kicks and penalty kicks than other players. Therefore, when Manchester United had already lost Beckham and Ronaldo, Rooney became the main free kicker. The position of this ball is still very good, almost facing the goal. Rooney looked at the wall and the goal with sharp eyes, then took a run up and suddenly exerted force. The football was like a cannonball fired from a barrel, without any rotation or arc, and shot directly into the upper left corner of the goal. Goalkeeper Davis predicted Rooney's shot route in advance and jumped up to save the ball like a nervous knife. However, Rooney's kick was too powerful. Davis missed the ball. The football just changed its direction slightly and continued to shoot towards the dead corner. The ball went in. The Manchester United fans in the stands of Wembley Stadium cheered wildly. The referee gestured to the centre circle, indicating that the goal was valid. The score on the big screen was immediately rewritten to Manchester United 1-1 Southampton. With Southampton leading by 1 goal, Manchester United went through a crazy pressure attack for 12 minutes and finally relied on Nani's diving in front of the penalty area to cheat a free kick, and then Rooney, the centre forward with rough free kick skills, scored the equaliser. Facts have proved that no matter what is technical or rough, great strength can always work miracles. After scoring, Rooney also happily opened his arms and hugged his teammates to celebrate. Southampton's score advantage was gone, and the two sides returned to the same starting line again. After equalizing the score, Manchester United was full of momentum. After the restart, they directly implemented full court pressing, especially against Guran's defense, which became even more severe. Park Ji-sung pressed Guran more closely and more violently. Almost before Guran got the ball, Park Ji-sung had already started to pull Guran's arm with his hands. In the 36th minute, Giggs passed the ball to Fletch in the middle. Fletch immediately dribbled forward. When Mikel came forward to intercept, he kicked Fletch's supporting leg and knocked Fletch to the ground. Fletch covered his leg and rolled in pain, but Mikel thought Fletch was pretending to cheat a yellow card, so Mikel reached out to pull Fletch, who fell to the ground, and Fletch wailed even louder. Rooney rushed over and pushed Mikel away. All the Southampton players immediately rushed towards Rooney, and the Manchester United players also surrounded him without showing any weakness. The two sides were immediately on the verge of a fight. Although Mikel is currently only on loan from Chelsea, in just a few games, Mikel has completely integrated into the Southampton team, so when Rooney stretched out his hand to push Mikel, all the Southampton players were furious. Guran rushed directly to the front, face to face with Rooney, crotch to crotch, nose to nose, eyes to eyes, chest to chest, and butted against each other. Lu Xiaopang's body is as strong as a tank, but in this situation, he can't beat Guran, and was pushed back by Guran. Such a passionate scene immediately detonated all the Southampton fans. The cheers of Southampton fans shook the sky. The entire Wembley Stadium was about to be blown up. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of control, the referee blew the whistle repeatedly, stood between the players of the two teams, and showed 3 yellow cards in one breath, which quickly calmed the situation. Mikel received a yellow card, Rooney received a yellow card, and Guran also received a yellow card. Such a penalty is somewhat disadvantageous for Southampton. Mikel and Guran are Southampton's double defensive midfielders. When intercepting and defending, they must move more vigorously, especially Mikel, who must play with the ruthlessness of an engineer who is not afraid of dirtying his body and reputation. But now, Mikel and Guran have both received yellow cards, while Manchester United only has one centre forward who has received a yellow card. This has basically no effect on Manchester United's defence. Coach Adkins, who was standing in the technical area on the sidelines, complained to the referee angrily. The referee ignored him, insisted on the original decision, and awarded the ball to Manchester United. Amid the boos of Southampton fans, Manchester United's formation collectively pressed forward, and Evra kicked a free kick with the outside of his foot. Fletcher jumped up first to head the ball, but failed to head it into the penalty area. Instead, he made a mistake and headed it not far from Guran and Park Ji-sung. Guran and Park Ji-sung immediately rushed up to grab the second point at the same time. Guran's speed was much faster than Park Ji-sung's, and with his physical advantage, he could completely shake off Park Ji-sung and grab the ball. However, Guran was not in a hurry, but deliberately fell behind a little. Park Ji-sung thought that Guran's physical strength was not good enough, so he threw his arms and rushed to grab the ball. When Park Ji-sung jumped up to head the ball, Gu-ran also jumped up immediately to head the ball with Park Ji-sung. Gu-ran jumped higher than Park Ji-sung, and his head was the first to touch the ball. Then, their heads hit each other heavily. To be precise, Gu-ran's head hit Park Ji-sung's nose. Park Ji-sung fell to the ground with a muffled sound. Gu-ran also lay on the ground with blood all over his head. The Southampton fans at the scene were all crazy. The referee quickly stopped the game and called the team doctors of both teams to enter the field urgently. After emergency treatment by the doctors of both teams, Manchester United player Park Ji-sung, whose face was covered in blood, was carried off the field on a stretcher, while Gu-ran stood up full of energy after cleaning the blood from his hair. The Southampton fans cheered deafeningly at the same time. Ferguson on the sidelines frowned and called Scholes to warm up urgently. Park Ji-sung's injury and departure completely disrupted Ferguson's tactical deployment. Although Park Ji-sung's ability is far inferior to Scholes, Park Ji-sung can do the dirty work, while Scholes cannot defend Gu-ran like a dogskin plaster. Therefore, although Park Ji-sung is not considered a main player for Manchester United, without Park Ji-sung, it is equivalent to being unable to better restrict Gu-ran. In this case, Ferguson can only replace veteran Scholes, and then let Fletch withdraw to temporarily take on the responsibility of defending Gu-ran. The game continues. Chapter 565. Gingerhead's ability. Southampton's conspiracy. When Scholes came on the pitch, all the Manchester United fans in the stands stood up and applauded Scholes. The 37-year-old world-class midfielder, who was about to retire, should have played casually in the second half after Manchester United gained an overwhelming lead. As a result, Scholes appeared when Manchester United needed him the most, just like before. In the 40th minute, which was the second minute after Scholes came on the pitch, Southampton's quick counter-attack shot was defended by Van der Sar, who kicked the ball to Scholes, who was slightly ahead. Scholes immediately dribbled forward. Mikel reached out to pull Scholes, but because Mikel had already received a yellow card and Mikel also respected Scholes, Mikel's pulling was not too big. Scholes took the opportunity to speed up and get rid of Mikel's entanglement. Gu-ran immediately retreated and sprinted to intercept, while Fletcher pulled Gu-ran's arm tightly. Scholes saw the opportunity and sent a straight through ball at the top of the penalty area. Rooney knocked away Font and JD, who were defending him, and shot the ball with great force after getting it. Davis jumped sideways to save the ball. This shot was too fast. From the through pass to the shot, it was so fast that people had no time to react. Davis had tried his best, but he still couldn't touch the ball. The ball burst into the net. The referee also gestured to the center circle, indicating that the goal was valid. The Manchester United fans in the stands cheered wildly. Scholes, their team soul, had an assist as soon as he came on as a substitute. Rooney, who scored twice, happily rushed to Scholes and hugged him with open arms, while Scholes doted on Rooney's not so thick hair. You know, Rooney's hair must not be touched, and only a veteran team soul like Scholes can rub Rooney's increasingly thin hair. The score on the big screen at Wembley Stadium was immediately rewritten as Manchester United 2:1 Southampton. Manchester United reversed the score after losing one goal first. Manchester United fans happily sang the Manchester United team song. Southampton fans sighed and shook their heads helplessly. It has to be said that Manchester United is indeed much stronger than Southampton. Southampton is obviously a team that plays defensive counter-attacks, but Southampton's defense is almost like a layer of brittle paper in front of Manchester United. And this is when Manchester United did not bring out all the main players. The game continues. Southampton, who was behind by one goal, did not lose its balance and mentality, but continued to play steadily and maintain a defensive formation, leaving only Gu-ran and Villana active in the midfield. In this game, although Gu-ran's position was a defensive midfielder, he wandered more in the position of central midfielder/front midfielder. Falling behind in the score is already a common thing for Southampton. The last time they played against Liverpool, Southampton first led by one goal, and then Liverpool chased 3 goals in a row. In the end, didn't they rely on Gu-ran to beat Liverpool? Therefore, Southampton was not nervous at all when they were 1 goal behind in the first half. The two sides engaged in close combat on both sides. Guran and Mikel both received yellow cards, which indeed greatly reduced the toughness of Southampton in their own backcourt. Fortunately, Southampton's iron bucket formation was well practiced, although it always seemed shaky under Manchester United's strong attack. In the last few minutes of the first half, Southampton still withstood Manchester United's round after round of fierce attacks. Southampton even had two good counter-attacks, but unfortunately Chamberlain and Lallana failed to seize the opportunity to score. With a long whistle from the referee, the first half of the FA Cup final ended, and the score was temporarily fixed at Manchester United 2-1 Southampton. To be honest, it is difficult for Manchester United fans to be satisfied with this halftime score. Although Manchester United overtook the score immediately after Scholes came on the field and completed the score reversal, the word reversal is an insult to Manchester United when playing against a team of Southampton's level. Ferguson was not very satisfied with the score. According to Ferguson's pre-match idea, Southampton should have been defeated by Manchester United in the first half of this game. Even Liverpool could score 3 goals against Southampton in the first half, so Manchester United should at least score 4 goals against Southampton in the first half. But now, Manchester United is only 1 goal ahead of Southampton, and Park Ji-sung, who played a very important role in this game, was injured and Scholes came on the field early. This will undoubtedly be a major test for Scholes' physical fitness. The players of both sides returned to their respective locker rooms amid the cheers of the fans of both sides. The Southampton players sat in the locker room, wiping their sweat, replenishing electrolyte sweet root water, or breathing oxygen, or stuffing snuff paste into their noses. Coach Adkins first cheered up the players, and then fine-tuned the formation and position on the tactical whiteboard. Coach Adkins told everyone that, if they continued to play like this, Southampton would still have a great chance to win the second FA Cup in the club's history. The Southampton players were also full of confidence. In the home team's locker room on the other side, Coach Ferguson turned on the hairdryer mode. With Manchester United's strength, it is a taboo not to be able to quickly defeat and penetrate Southampton. Manchester United must reserve some of their physical strength and energy to deal with the second round of the Champions League semi-finals in 3 days, so they must penetrate Southampton as soon as possible and leave Southampton without any ability to fight back. Ferguson said that a team like Southampton has no tactics at all. They just rely on Guran, so they adopted a shrinking tactic in the early stage, using physical confrontation to test Manchester United's physical strength and patience, and when Manchester United's physical strength and patience are relaxed, they will launch a fatal counter-attack by Guran. Ferguson had seen through this tactic a long time ago. But the problem is that some tactics are not conspiracies, but open conspiracies. Conspiracies are easy to break, but open conspiracies rely entirely on hard power. If a conspiracy is seen through, it will be useless, but if an open conspiracies are seen through, hard power is still needed. The current Southampton team is not afraid of being seen through, so Guran's position is getting closer and closer to the center and closer to the front. No one in the Manchester United team can limit Guran. Even Park Ji-sung, who is a dogskin plaster, can't limit Guran in the second half. Therefore, Ferguson knows very well that the score in the first half really means nothing. If Guran's sudden outbreak cannot be restricted in the second half, everything will be over. The new strategy arranged by Ferguson is to let Fletch give up everything and stare at Guran, and Scholes should also help defend Fletch to the best of his ability. After the 15-minute halftime break, the players of both sides came on the court again and changed sides to fight again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 566. Nanny dives again. Jiggs wants to eat Guran alive, but gets eaten alive instead. The second half started. Manchester United continued to attack with all their might. In the 48th minute, Little P got the ball near the midfield, and with a beautiful man ball pass, he passed Lambert who was intercepting him, then got the ball again, and passed it to Nani on the right. Nani immediately ran inside after dribbling the ball. Hammond made a mistake in marking and was thrown away by Nani at high speed. Guran sprinted back to intercept. Nani ran into Guran with the ball. Nani rolled to the ground. All the Southampton fans at the scene cursed at Nani. Speaking of which, Ronaldo also loved diving, but Nani jumped more than Ronaldo. A little confrontation and he dived. Fortunately, Ashley Young has not come to Manchester United yet, otherwise this game would not be a two-winger flying game, but a two-winger jumping game. The Southampton players angrily surrounded Nani lying on the ground. You know, Guran has a yellow card now. If he gets another yellow card because of Nani's fall, then he will be sent off with 2 yellow cards and 1 red card. If Guran, the core of the conspiracy, is sent off, then Southampton will not have to play. Guran also looked helpless and asked Nani, who was lying on the ground with his hands spread out, "Hey, Nani, we are still from the same school. You can't do this, right?" Nani covered his face and didn't say a word to Guran. At this time, the referee ran over again after asking the linesman and gave Nani, who was lying on the ground, a yellow card. Nani screamed and jumped up to protest. The referee sternly warned Nani that if he dared to dive again, he would be sent off next time. Nani then restrained himself. Guran put his arm around Nani's shoulders and said with a smile, "Nani, you are really unkind." Nani blushed and smiled. "Ahem, boo, we are each serving different masters. I will treat you to a meal later." Guran waved his hand. "No, just stop diving." The game continued, and the confrontation between the two sides was still fierce. In the 54th minute of the game, Schneiderlin's nose was broken in the confrontation with Giggs on his own right side. Schneiderlin did not want to go off the court for treatment, but the referee forced Schneiderlin to leave the court for treatment. Southampton temporarily faced 10 people. Southampton's iron bucket formation also had a gap. Manchester United seized this opportunity and Giggs drove straight into the game. Guran immediately moved to the right side to fill the position and confronted Giggs head on. Although Giggs is very old, he has super confrontation and physical strength and is extremely experienced. Facing Guran's interception, Giggs first pretended to rush hard. When Guran moved his feet to block, Giggs stepped on the ball and stopped suddenly, then pulled his center of gravity to change line, trying to break through from behind Guran. However, Guran's reaction was extremely fast. When Giggs just stopped the ball and had not changed line, Guran predicted that Giggs wanted to pass from behind him, so Guran took a step back and completely blocked Giggs's path to change line. Giggs was shocked. He never expected that Guran, who had only joined the professional league for a year, could have such a high football IQ. Of course, as a ruthless man who could sleep with his wife, sleep with a female model, and sleep with his brother's wife, after sleeping with a female model, Giggs' experience is naturally very experienced. When Giggs saw Guran step back to block, he immediately stopped again and shook his body, rushing from the front of Guran. Guran directly went up to fight Giggs physically. At this time, all the passing skills are meaningless, it's just a matter of seeing who is tougher. Giggs relied on his sprint inertia and muscle strength to force the ball to pass, while Guran leaned forward with his center of gravity slightly lowered, blocking Giggs's impact. Giggs was stuck. He couldn't move. After just this moment of confrontation, Giggs' heart sank. It's over. Not to mention a hard breakthrough, Giggs couldn't even turn his hips. The former world-class winger was blocked by Guran and couldn't move at all. Almost at the same time, Mikel rushed over, stretched out his foot, and stole the ball under Giggs' feet. The cooperation between Mikel and Guran was simply perfect. On the other hand, Fletcher's task was to limit Guran and stare at Guran, but it was not until Mikel stole the ball that Fletcher hurriedly arrived and reached out to grab Guran's jersey. Mikel then passed the ball to Lallana, who was running forward, and Lallana dribbled to the right after taking the ball. Under Fletcher's pull, Guran rushed straight to the middle with a violent aesthetic posture. The Southampton fans in the stands cheered wildly. This scene was really super exciting. Fletcher grabbed Guran tightly, and his feet obviously couldn't keep up, and his body almost lost balance, but he couldn't pull Guran with all his strength. In the end, Fletcher could only let go in despair. Guran's violent aesthetic sprint broke out completely. Lallana saw the opportunity and immediately picked the football under his feet to the top of the Manchester United penalty area. The world's #1 defender Rio Ferdinand and Vidic both rushed up to compete for the ball. Even goalkeeper Van der Sar rushed out to act as a defender to intercept. And Guran's speed was faster than them. Guran took off in advance at the top of the penalty area, his body hanging upside down and hooked sideways. The football was between Rio Ferdinand and Vidic and was touched by Guran's hook first and slammed into the grass in front of the goal like a dunk. Calm cat Van der Sar couldn't calm down anymore. Van der Sar retreated in panic, trying his best to reach out for the ball. The ball was so powerful that it hit the grass hard and bounced up. Although it was half as slow as before, it still bounced steadily towards the empty goal. Van der Sar fell to the ground like a dog chewing mud. The football bounced into the net without any hindrance. The ball went in. This was an extremely wonderful sideways back hook goal. In the FA Cup final, in front of 90,000 fans, against a strong team like Manchester United, under the joint pressure of the world's #1 defenders Rio Ferdinand and Vidic and the world-class goalkeeper Van der Sar, Guran scored a golden overhead kick. The referee signaled that the goal was valid. The score on the big screen at Wembley Stadium was immediately rewritten as Manchester United 2 Southampton. With this golden sideways back hook, Southampton tied the score. The Southampton fans cheered wildly, and the whole Wembley Stadium was filled with the roars of Chinese dad and Guran. Manchester United fans were stunned. They thought Manchester United could easily beat Southampton in this game, but in the second half, the game was still 2-2. Rooney scored twice, and Guran also scored twice. In comparison, Guran's goal was more domineering than Rooney's. Beautiful. Is Southampton really a League One team? Now, the pressure is completely on Manchester United. Chapter 567 Skulls again. Manchester United overtakes again. Manchester United coach Ferguson frowned, chewing a piece of chewing gum that had no taste, and stared at the dejected Manchester United players on the field with a sharp gaze. As the absolute boss of Manchester United, and a godfather type coach, such a score of 2-2 was enough for Ferguson to give a hairdryer reprimand. But in fact, Ferguson himself knew that the goal was not the fault of the Manchester United players, but that Guran was too difficult to defend. Guran was not at a disadvantage in the confrontation with Giggs, and with Mikel's timely defense, it was normal for him to steal the ball from Giggs. Guran's powerful run in the midfield was impossible for Fletcher to defend, and the players in other positions were too late to assist Fletcher, so Fletcher could only watch Guran shake him off and go straight into the middle. Lallana's cross was not brilliant or even accurate, which led to Guran having to compete for the high ball between two world-class central defenders. However, Guran was able to increase his sprint speed to the extreme, then leap into the air and hook the ball sideways against two world-class central defenders. If Guran was replaced in any of the above links, Southampton would not be successful. However, Southampton had Guran. It's like a broken tractor equipped with a V16 engine. No matter how broken and rotten this tractor is, its engine has 16 cylinders. Even if the entire Manchester United team is racing cars, they can't catch up with it. Ferguson couldn't help but sigh secretly. If I had known this earlier, I should have adopted the advice of Scout Jim Lawler and bought Guran at a high price before Guran grew up. At first, I thought that a pure rookie player from China was not worth a price of £100,000. In the blink of an eye, this Chinese player was worth £1 million. In the blink of an eye, this Chinese player was worth tens of millions of pounds. In the blink of an eye, he was close to a priceless treasure. Of course, the more priceless the treasure, the more only Manchester United deserves it. Ferguson looked at Guran, his eyes full of determination. When the summer window of the new season begins, Manchester United must make signing Guran the primary goal. The game continued. The two sides returned to the same starting line. Of course, judging from the situation and data of the game, Manchester United still has an absolute advantage. Manchester United has a ball possession rate of more than 76% so far, and the number of shots has reached a terrifying 22 times. On the other hand, Southampton's ball possession rate is less than 24%. From the beginning of the first half of the game to the 60th minute of the second half, Southampton's number of shots was only 7 times, of which only 4 were on target, but these 4 shots on target scored 2 goals. In terms of the strength of the two teams, Manchester United at this time was definitely the overlord of the Premier League, and even the overlord of the Champions League. Therefore, in theory, there was not much suspense about Manchester United winning Southampton. But the game has been played until now, and it has given everyone a shocking feeling. Southampton is indeed not as strong as Manchester United, and it is indeed suppressed by Manchester United. The defense is ugly, and it can even be described as shameless, but no one can deny the super resilience of the Southampton team. The score of 2:2 is proof. With the defensive resilience of the Southampton team, coupled with Guran's super conversion in defense and offense, this Southampton team really has a chance to overturn the powerful Manchester United. Southampton now only needs to fight on a single line. Today's FA Cup final is their last game before the season is suspended. In addition to playing this game, Manchester United will also play 2 tough battles related to the Premier League Championship, as well as a Champions League semi-final and the Champions League final. Manchester United is equivalent to fighting on 3 fronts. No matter how strong the team is, it will show the fatigue of the lion under the 3-line battle. After 60 minutes, Manchester United's physical and mental disadvantages began to be exposed. Southampton continued to defend steadily, and only used Guran, Lallana and Chamberlain's cooperation to seek opportunities on the offensive end. Once there were not enough opportunities or more defense was needed, Guran and others would never take risks. Manchester United certainly did not want to give up the FA Cup championship that was about to be won, so Manchester United continued to strengthen its offensive. Even if this might affect Manchester United's second leg of the Champions League semi-final 3 days later, Manchester United would not hesitate. In the 63rd minute, Manchester United pressed forward. Giggs made an effective breakthrough on the wing, and after going down the bottom, he passed the ball back under the double team of 2 Southampton defenders. Rooney stopped the ball and shot high over the goal at 25 yards. In the 67th minute, Scholes passed the ball to the right. After Nani got the ball, he was blocked by Guran. Nani did not dare to dive, but he could not beat Guran, so he could only hastily pass the ball to the Little P who came up to support. After getting the ball, Little P stopped and passed Chamberlain who came forward to intercept, but was shoveled into the air by Lambert who followed closely to assist. Lambert also received a yellow card, but this yellow card was necessary. If Little P passed and made a through pass, Rooney, who was in a fatal position, would probably seize the opportunity to complete a hat-trick. So sometimes, when it is time to do the dirty work, you have to stand up and do the dirty work. After Lambert received the yellow card, Guran and others also high-fived Lambert to show their appreciation. Manchester United also won a free kick on the right side 40 meters away from the goal because of Lambert's foul. Scholes stood on the penalty spot and took the free kick. Southampton quickly formed a human wall, and Manchester United's high defense players also infiltrated the penalty area, waiting for a header opportunity. Scholes glanced at the human wall, then took a run up and kicked the ball. The football was like a cannonball, accurately falling to the front point of the goal. There was chaos in the penalty area. Vidic jumped high under the blocking of JD and headed the ball. The football was placed in front of the right goalpost. When it was about to go out of bounds, Nani rushed over quickly and raised his foot to touch it under the pulling and double teaming of 3 Southampton players. The football immediately changed its line and rolled towards the near corner of the goal at a small angle. Goalkeeper Davis was helpless. The ball went in. The referee signaled that the goal was valid. The Manchester United fans in the stands cheered wildly. The score on the big screen at Wembley Stadium was rewritten again. Manchester United 3:2 Southampton. Under the crazy attack, Manchester United finally opened the door of Southampton with a set piece. It was Scholes again. The 2 goals scored by Manchester United after Scholes came on the field were both related to Scholes' instigation. Scholes' set piece was very accurate. Vidic's header was good when his body lost balance, and Nani's insertion was also very smart. The entire Manchester United set piece attacking coordination level is absolutely world class. After all, Southampton's players are much weaker than Manchester United, especially in the ability to grasp the moment. However, the game is not over yet. The score of 3:2 is definitely not the end. Chapter 568, World Class Scene. Rooney vs. Guran. Sideways hook vs sideways hook. The game continued. Manchester United, who was leading by 1 goal, did not dare to relax and continued to maintain a high pressure situation against Southampton. Fletch tried his best to defend Guran, but in this regard, he was indeed not as useful as Park Ji-sung. Guran could always get rid of Fletch easily with a sudden acceleration and emergency stop. Manchester United players and other Southampton players were suppressive, but Fletch could not suppress Guran at all, and even acted like a fool, being sprinted back and forth by Guran, and walking the dog. The game had just reached the 70th minute, and Fletch's physical strength was obviously unable to support it. The gaps and loopholes around Guran were getting bigger and bigger. Fortunately, Scholes was very experienced in the midfield area and could attack and defend. With Scholes' help, Fletch did not make a big mistake. In the 73rd minute of the game, Manchester United found an opportunity on the right side. Scholes ghostly penetrated to the right rib to receive the ball and then made a long diagonal pass to the Southampton penalty area. Little P jumped up at the right time. Although Little P is not tall and has poor physical confrontation, Little P has a very good sense of timing. JD jumped up and used physical confrontation to interfere with Little P's strength. Little P's header was on target, but the power of the shot was also half weak due to the lack of physical confrontation. Davis predicted accurately and confiscated the ball with both hands. In today's game, Davis' performance was also remarkable. Although Southampton had lost 3 goals, if it weren't for Davis, they would have lost 5 goals. In the 77th minute, Guran successfully intercepted Nani in the backcourt area and then made a long pass to Lallana. Lallana ran frantically and was about to pass the central defender line formed by Rio Ferdinand and Vidic. As a result, the goalkeeper-type goalkeeper Van der Sar rushed out of the penalty area in one breath and passed the ball to Rooney near the center circle before Lallana touched the ball. Van der Sar's attack was very decisive and bold, and also very effective. This is the case with a gatekeeper-type goalkeeper, which is equivalent to having half a defender on the field. Therefore, in the case of dealing with certain single-handed balls, the gatekeeper-type goalkeeper is still very advantageous. Of course, the gatekeeper-type goalkeeper is also a double-edged sword. If the gatekeeper-type goalkeeper misjudges the enemy's speed in the landing point of the football, the enemy will directly hit the empty goal. Or, if the gatekeeper-type goalkeeper grabs the ball, but the cross is not accurate enough, it will be counter-harmed and cause irreparable losses. Van der Sar's forward grasp is absolutely world-class, and Van der Sar's pass is also world-class. Rooney, who received this pass, is also world-class. Therefore, this wave of cooperation by Manchester United is really as smooth and impeccable as mercury pouring out of the ground. After Rooney got the ball, he immediately turned around and sprinted towards Southampton's penalty area. Guran also immediately retreated to intercept Rooney's breakthrough route. The offensive and defensive transitions of both sides were very fast, and the fans in the stands were suffocated again and again. Facing Guran's interception, Rooney first half sideways protected the ball, trying to use the impact of his body to force Guran, but under Rooney's impact, Guran was not moved at all. Seeing that Mikel was about to rush over, Rooney did not dare to entangle with Guran, and immediately kicked the ball to the right side of Southampton's half. Giggs passed through the gap between Lambert and Schneiderlin, and got Rooney's long pass in a relatively disadvantaged position. It must be said that Giggs' ability to get in the gap is really strong. As Giggs dribbled the ball to the bottom, all Southampton players retreated to defend, and Manchester United also pressed forward frantically. Rooney and Guran squeezed each other all the way to the Southampton penalty area, and Fletch and Mikel followed closely. Fletch wanted to help Rooney get rid of Guran, who was blocking Rooney, while Mikel wanted to help Guran get rid of Fletch, who was blocking Guran. Fletch was obviously at a disadvantage in the confrontation with Milk. After Giggs went down the bottom, he found an opportunity to lift the ball to the front of the goal. Nani inserted from the back row and made a diving header half a meter in front of the penalty spot. Davis barely blocked the ball. The little P followed up with a supplementary shot. Davis, who lost his balance and fell to the ground, blocked it again with his toes. The football bounced back to the small penalty area again and landed at the position of Rooney and Guran. At this moment, the Southampton penalty area was already in chaos. After making 2 consecutive amazing saves, Davis had fallen to the ground and was powerless. Whoever could grab this supplementary shot would score. Rooney used all his strength to face the half-high ball that bounced back and kicked sideways to Hook. At the same time, Guran also kicked sideways to Hook from the opposite position. Rooney was going to hook the ball sideways, while Guran was going to hook the ball sideways to clear the ball. The postures of the two were like mirror images. They almost kicked and raised their legs at the same time and touched the rebounding football at the same time. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be suffocating. The fans in the stands, in front of the TV, and on the internet, all had their hearts frozen in their chests. The scene of Rooney and Guran's battle was like a world famous painting. Now, it depends on who has the greater hitting power. Bang. The next moment, the football flew high, flew out of the penalty area, and flew outside the penalty area. The linesman raised the flag. The ball was out of bounds. The Southampton fans in the stands screamed like crazy. Win. Guran won. The ball was cleared out of the penalty area by Guran. This wave of defense is really too passionate and too exciting. The world-class Rooney was defended without any temper. Manchester United's Red Devils fans were also stunned by Guran. Guran can not only score with a sideways hook, but also use a sideways hook to defend against a sideways hook. Although Southampton is still 1 goal behind Manchester United, Guran's defense really makes Manchester United fans breathless. The only thing that Manchester United fans should be thankful for is that the linesman awarded the ball to Manchester United for the throw-in. Therefore, although Manchester United's 3 consecutive waves of attacks were frustrated, Manchester United still had the ball to attack in the front court. Evra ran up to throw the throw-in. The Southampton players did not have time to celebrate with Guran for the famous scene of the side hook defense just now, and immediately engaged in man-to-man defense in the penalty area. Evra thrust his waist and abdomen and smashed the ball into the junction of the penalty area and the small penalty area. Vidic, who was at the front point, jumped high and headed for the goal. Under the close defense of the Southampton players, Vidic's header skills were not fully utilized. Goalkeeper Davis saw the opportunity and held the ball firmly in his arms. Manchester United fans sighed. The score has not been open for a long time, and Manchester United cannot relax for a moment. Just as the Manchester United players were frowning and slowly retreating, Davis rushed forward and threw the football in his hand hard towards Guran, who had quietly run to the empty space on the left side. Chapter 569. Fairy from the Sky. Guran's hat-trick. Ferguson is shaking like Parkinson. Southampton's counter-attack came very suddenly. Davis's hand-thrown ball was very powerful and the line was very accurate. The football passed over Vidic and Rio Ferdinand's heads in the air and was given to Guran in the center line of the left side. This ball was obviously specially trained, otherwise it would be impossible to cooperate so well, and it would be thrown so far and so accurately. The most important thing is that when Davis threw the ball with great force, Guran was still in his own half and was not offside. It was Manchester United's defense that was too arrogant and too careless in returning to defense. Southampton seized this extremely rare counter-attack opportunity. While Davis threw the ball, all the other players of Southampton sprinted, actively seeking physical confrontation, so that Manchester United players could not easily speed up and get rid of, chase and intercept Guran. After Guran got the ball, the son of wind and the king of Highbury immediately broke out, and from the left side position he was most familiar with, he directly cut into Manchester United's penalty area. Manchester United's defenders retreated frantically. Rio Ferdinand was very fast and ran in a straight line in the middle. Theoretically, it was shorter than Guran's diagonal insertion and more likely to be intercepted. However, when the game reached the 80th minute, Manchester United's overall physical fitness had declined, and Rio Ferdinand was no exception. Although Rio Ferdinand, as the world's #1 defender, was a representative of the immortal, this did not mean that Rio Ferdinand could maintain a high-intensity sprint speed throughout the game. As for Vidic, that was even more so. Vidic's collision was fierce and his fight was fierce, but his slow turn and slow chase were the biggest problems that prevented Vidic from becoming the world's #1 defender. In the blink of an eye, Duran left Rio Ferdinand and Vidic, who were chasing in a straight line, behind. The only defender left in Manchester United's backcourt was the right back Fabio. Fabio accelerated to intercept Duran, hoping to slow down Duran's sprint speed so as to give Rio Ferdinand and Vidic more time to chase back. This was also considered cooperation. If it really doesn't work, Fabio is ready to slide and pull on the ground. In short, he would rather get a yellow card than not break Duran's one-on-one shot. However, the young Fabio overestimated his personal ability. Before Fabio could get close to Duran, Duran made a Marcel turn at high speed, protecting the ball while easily passing Fabio. Fabio quickly reached out to pull Duran's jersey. Fabio grabbed it with all his strength, but only caught the afterimage. His body lost balance and fell on the grass in embarrassment. Duran completely got a one-on-one shot. The Southampton fans at the scene roared and cheered wildly. Some female fans even took off their tops that were in the way, used the clothes as flags, and waved them wildly. The Manchester United Red Devils fans had no intention of looking at the scenery. Their hearts were all in their throats. At this time, the world-class goalkeeper Van der Sar abandoned the goal and attacked. Duran did not hesitate. He kicked the ball 40 meters away from the goal and shot it violently. A fairy from the sky. The football drew a parabola like a beautiful woman's chest and shot it towards the almost empty goal with great force. Van der Sar, who was always known for his calmness and stability, was shocked and quickly turned around and jumped to intercept. However, the power, angle, and aggression of Duran's flying fairy from the sky were completely comparable to the flying fairy from the sky in Lu Xiaopang's peak period. Van der Sar was powerless. The football shot into the net with great force. The net was agitated, and even the goalposts were buzzing and trembling. The ball went in. In the 81st minute of the second half, Manchester United's out-of-bounds attack failed. Davis threw the ball with a powerful backhand to assist Duran, who ran out of the gap. Duran sprinted with all his strength and shot a long-range shot with a flying fairy from the sky, equalizing the score. Amid the crazy cheers of more than 40,000 Southampton fans at the scene, the referee indicated that the goal was valid. The score on the big screen at Wembley Stadium was also changed to 3:3. Duran completed a hat-trick in the FA Cup final. The big screen repeatedly played the scene of Duran driving straight in, passing Fabio, and forcing a long shot at Van der Sar. Southampton fans, coaches, and players on the bench were all crazy. This was Southampton's brightest moment this season. This goal was so shocking. It can definitely be rated as Southampton's most exciting goal this season. It is also enough to be selected for this year's Puskas Award. What's more amazing is that they were able to withstand the pressure of Manchester United's strong offensive and equalize the score, pulling the anxious Manchester United back to the same starting line. Manchester United's physical fitness is no longer as good as Southampton, who has been recuperating for a long time. If it is dragged into overtime, then for Manchester United, the impact will not only be on this FA Cup final, but also on the fight for this season's Premier League and Champions League titles. At this time, the host position was given to Manchester United's head coach Ferguson. Ferguson sat on the bench with a blank expression on his face, but when the close-up slowly moved down, the big screen at Wembley Stadium showed Ferguson slightly trembling, Parkinson-like fingers. Ferguson looked very calm on the surface, as if the 3:3 score was really nothing to him who was used to the ups and downs. But in fact, Ferguson had already felt the pressure brought by Duran. This pressure had nothing to do with other Southampton players. Ferguson never took other Southampton players seriously, whether it was Chamberlain, who was called a young talent, or Lallana, who was quite capable, or Mikel, who was loaned from Chelsea, or Adkins, who was called a magical coach. Ferguson never took these people seriously. Ferguson didn't even take Southampton's tactics seriously. What's so great about Southampton's tactics? Any head coach with a little bit of experience can see clearly that Southampton's tactics are so simple that they don't need to be analysed at all. It's nothing more than using Guran's personal strength and leading football IQ to change positions on the spot. The only person Ferguson really cares about is Guran. It is also very simple to deal with Southampton, just limit Guran. But the question is, who can limit Guran? Good ingredients often only need the simplest cooking. Just like a ballon, the best way to eat it is steamed. This concept can still be applied in football matches. When you have a bug level player in your camp, formations and tactics do not need to be complicated, but the simpler the better. Complex tactics are conspiracies, and simple tactics are open conspiracies. The core of conspiracy is strategy, and the core of open conspiracies is people. Ferguson chewed gum expressionlessly, but he could not hide the trembling of his fingers. For the first time, Ferguson felt that he was old. It's time to retire. Chapter 570 Ferguson time. 7 minutes of injury time. The game is not over yet. Ferguson, who couldn't control his trembling fingers, has not given up yet. The spirit of the Red Devils Manchester United is to never give up. Ferguson quickly adjusted his mentality and asked Carrick to warm up on the sidelines. The core of Southampton is Guran, so if Manchester United wants to win, they must limit Guran. Park Ji-sung was injured, and Fletch himself is not a very good player in marking. After replacing Carrick, he can use Carrick's physical advantage and defensive experience to better defend Guran. When Carrick was warming up, Fletch knew that he was about to be replaced, so he no longer retained his physical strength, and the movements of his hands and feet became rough. Fletch also wanted to use this to consume more of Guran's physical strength and state. However, Fletch tried his best, but he could not limit Guran's performance on the offensive and defensive ends. It can even be said that Guran did not take Fletch's desperate efforts seriously at all. In the 83rd minute, Scholes collided with Guran while actively defending him. Scholes fell to the ground, and Guran's thigh was cut by Scholes' studs. The team doctors of both sides quickly entered the field to treat and bandage. All Manchester United fans stood up and sang Manchester United's team song in an almost tragic voice. To be honest, the score of 3:3 is certainly not a failure, but Manchester United is facing Southampton, a team at the level of the English League One. In the finals, being tied to this extent by Southampton, a third-level league, is already a failure. While the game was interrupted, and both sides were healing on the field, the players of both sides returned to the bench to replenish water. After a simple bandage, Guran stood up again. Scholes didn't have much problem either. As a person who has been weak and sick since childhood, suffering from severe eye diseases, asthma, and albinism, Scholes is really super strong to be able to fight Guran without suffering too much at the age of nearly 40. After Guran stood up, he took the initiative to shake hands with Scholes to show his respect. Scholes nodded to Guran with a serious face and returned the greeting. At this time, the fourth official raised a sign, and Fletcher, who had been unable to run by Guran, ran off the field panting, and Carrick quickly took his position. After Carrick came on the field, he whispered to Scholes briefly, which was a message from Coach Ferguson. Scholes nodded with a serious face, and his eyes fell on Guran intentionally or unintentionally. Obviously, Ferguson's requirement for Scholes and Carrick was that the two of them should work together to keep a close eye on Guran. Only by restricting Guran can Southampton be restricted from continuing to score, and at the same time, loopholes can be created in Southampton's defense. The game started again. Manchester United, who was tied twice by Southampton, continued to attack wildly. Although the whole game was full of pressure and crazy attack, this method would be very exhausting for Manchester United, who were about to play the second round of the Champions League semi-finals. But the FA Cup final had come to this point, and Manchester United had no chance of giving up. The game was in the 86th minute. All Manchester United players pressed near the Southampton penalty area. Veteran Giggs broke through the three-man double-team defense, inserted through the gap, dribbled the ball to the bottom, and then saw the opportunity to make a reverse triangle cross. Giggs had performed such a breakthrough and back pass 7 or 8 times in this game, but Southampton really had no way to deal with Giggs' textbook-like flying wing cross. the world-class flying wing, the real core of Manchester United, is really not exaggerated. Although Giggs slept with his wife and a female model, and even slept with his brother-in-law, after sleeping with the female model, this did not prevent Giggs from having the strength of a world-class flying wing. Giggs's breakthrough and cross are world class. Giggs's cross landed precisely on Rooney's head, which was already balding. There are many football players who are bald at an early age, and Rooney is the most famous one. Rooney's baldness is partly due to heredity, but more importantly, it is due to too many headers in his career. Heading is a way of shooting that is very harmful to the scalp and even to the brain tissue. But Rooney had no way to avoid it. Giggs' cross hit him on the head, and as a centre forward, he couldn't avoid it, right? So, Rooney jumped up from the ground like a short and fat little rocket and headed the ball. Goalkeeper Davis missed the ball, but fortunately Guran arrived in time and cleared the ball out of the penalty area near the goal line. Southampton fans breathed a sigh of relief. Manchester United's Red Devils fans covered their faces and sighed with disappointment. Davis hugged Guran excitedly. If Guran hadn't sprinted from the top of the arc to get rid of Carrick and retreat to the goal line to rescue the ball, Southampton would have been ahead of Manchester United again. After this wave of attack, Manchester United's crazy offensive continued unabated. 1 minute later, Manchester United's offensive came back from the right. Scholes made a wonderful pass to Nani, who dribbled the ball directly into the Southampton penalty area. Mikel blocked Nani outside the penalty area. Nani immediately passed the ball to the nimble P, who retreated back. After taking the ball, the nimble P shook to the left, opened a shooting gap between Font and Hammond, and directly pushed the ball into the near corner of the goal at a small angle. Davis jumped sideways to block the ball and barely blocked it out of the penalty area. But the ball was not dead yet. Rooney picked up the first landing point on the left side of the penalty area, and Guran rushed up to pressure Rooney. Rooney, who was fearless, hesitated in the 1v1 situation with Guran. Although Rooney shot at the first time, the angle and strength of the shot were obviously not enough. The football hit the goalpost and bounced out of the bottom line when Davis was obviously powerless. Rooney clenched his fist and roared at the goal. Manchester United's crazy attack was very beautiful, but it was just blooming without bearing fruit. Although Rooney's shot did not touch Guran, if Guran had not rushed over to press, Rooney's shot would almost certainly have gone in. Now, the game has been played for 88 minutes, and there are only 2 minutes left in the regular time. Manchester United is still 3-3 Southampton. At this time, the fourth official raised a sign, indicating that this game will be added to the extra time, up to 7 minutes. Although there were 2 interruptions due to injuries in the second half, the length of this extra time is definitely beyond the scope. Of course, when Ferguson coached Manchester United, the referees of the FA have always been very caring towards Manchester United, so Manchester United's extra time is also called Ferguson time. On the surface, it is 7 minutes of extra time, but to exaggerate, Ferguson time will be added until Ferguson is satisfied. Chapter 571 Crazy Injury Time. Ward-Prowse comes on the pitch. Manchester United continued to strengthen their offensive. Almost all the defensive players passed the half court and pressed Southampton's defense with all their strength. Southampton was overwhelmed by Manchester United's attack. Under such high pressure, Southampton had no way to fight back. There were dangers around Southampton's penalty area, and Guran repeatedly performed the drama of saving the game. In the 90th minute, Scholes made a powerful long shot in front of the arc. Mikel's eyebrow bone was broken by the football when he blocked the ball. However, Mikel ignored the blood on his face. After being hit in the face by the football and falling to the ground, he quickly got up and stabbed the ball to Guran. After Guran got the ball, he was immediately intercepted by Manchester United. Carrick, who had just come on the field, hugged Guran's waist with both hands from behind Guran and held Guran tightly. This is a technical foul. The referee blew the whistle, gave Carrick a yellow card, and awarded Southampton a backcourt free kick that was not threatening at all. The Southampton fans in the stands immediately booed in dissatisfaction. The Southampton players also surrounded the referee and asked the referee to change Carrick's red card. But the referee insisted on his decision and verbally warned the Southampton players who surrounded him to complain. Mikel was asked to leave the field temporarily for treatment because of a cracked eyebrow bone. Taking advantage of this time, Coach Adkins began to make substitutions. The central defender Font was replaced, and the vice-captain Walton came on to strengthen the control near the penalty area. Mikel simply sewed a few stitches with a stapler without anesthesia, and then quickly ran into the court. Mikel's iron-blooded behavior was also highly recognized by Southampton fans. The Southampton fans in the stands applauded Mikel. Now, Manchester United still has one substitution quota, and Southampton still has two substitution quotas. Manchester United's famous stars such as Valencia, Anderson, Berbatov, Owen, etc. are still sitting on the bench, but the chances of them playing in today's game are obviously not high. At this time, it is no longer possible to open up the situation by replacing an offensive star. Manchester United's most urgent need is to rely on midfielders to limit Guran's performance. However, Manchester United's midfielders are already the top players in their current lineup, and it will be useless to replace anyone else. After replacing Walton, Coach Adkins asked the young Ward-Prowse to warm up on the sidelines. The game continues. Southampton's formation slightly pressed forward to open up the passing space. The anxious Manchester United team continued to maintain a high-pressure posture, especially against Guran. At least 4 Manchester United players followed Guran closely, ready to intercept and fight at any time. Manchester United is different from other strong teams that Southampton has encountered this season. Other strong teams have either been physically exhausted or their wills have been broken, but Manchester United has not collapsed. Even though Manchester United was already at a disadvantage in terms of physical fitness and was very impatient in terms of mentality, Manchester United at this time was indeed the real Red Devils. The Red Devils that never give up and never give up. The big counter-attack that Southampton had originally expected never happened from beginning to end. Almost from beginning to end, they were suppressed by Manchester United. From the perspective of Southampton alone, they played very hard, and it was not very good. However, relying on Guran's several quick counter-attacks, Southampton played very badly, and it was a draw at present. Therefore, at this moment, Southampton's game mentality was very good. Walton, who had just appeared on the field, took this backward free kick to Lambert, who retreated to respond. Lambert dribbled forward and looked for an opportunity to pass to Guran. However, Guran was surrounded tightly, and Guran kept running in and out, but there were always Manchester United players on the line between Lambert and Guran, ready to intercept and steal at any time. In terms of joint defense in the midfield, Manchester United did a good job. Not only that, Rooney at the front was not idle either. He directly pressed Lambert from a high position, preventing Lambert from passing the ball forward easily. Facing Rooney's fierce pressing, Lambert could only half turn to protect the ball and pass the ball to Hammond on the left. Guran took the opportunity to retreat at high speed. Hammond immediately passed the ball to Guran. After Guran got the ball, he did not stop and directly made a long diagonal pass to the weak area on the right. Schneiderlin jumped up and stopped the ball with his chest when no one was guarding him, and then ran along the right side with the ball. Manchester United's defense immediately retreated at high speed to intercept. Guran, who had just sprinted back to his own back half to receive the ball, also sprinted at full speed and went straight to the empty space in the middle. Schneiderlin saw the opportunity and passed a half-high ball to the middle. Scholes and Carrick desperately blocked Guran, preventing Guran from running to respond in the first time, and Rooney, who also retreated at high speed, raised his foot to the limit and intercepted Schneiderlin's cross. In this half-minute, the pace of both sides was so fast that it suffocated the fans in the stands. Manchester United was also forced to overdraw their full strength, and Southampton tried their best. This unbalanced but evenly matched game was more interesting than any previous game. Rooney intercepted the ball and turned quickly. Lallana, who followed in the back row, directly and unceremoniously slid and knocked Rooney to the ground. This scene shocked everyone. Fans had only seen Rooney shovel others in the past, but they didn't expect to see Rooney being shoveled away by a kind-hearted guy like Lallana today. Rooney immediately got up and angrily confronted Lallana. Southampton's players all rushed up, and the players on both sides were on edge again. The referee intervened in time, gave Lallana a yellow card, and warned Rooney. Lallana's yellow card was still very meaningful and necessary. If Rooney's turning and fast attack could not be interrupted in time, Southampton's defense line would be torn apart, and it would be difficult to stop Rooney's impact. The referee awarded the ball to Manchester United. Southampton quickly returned to defense. Manchester United wanted to quickly take a free kick from the backcourt, but the fourth official on the sidelines held up a sign to signal a substitution. Southampton's Lambert was replaced by the young and energetic Ward-Prowse. Lambert's performance was remarkable, but he was replaced at this time. On the one hand, he wanted to rely on substitutions to delay the rhythm of the game, so as not to be out of breath under the strong pressure of Manchester United and cause the team's defense to collapse. On the other hand, he also wanted to let Ward-Prowse's physical strength and impact ability help Guran to open up the gap. Ward-Prowse was also participating in this high-level event for the first time, and he was extremely excited. The game continued. 5 minutes of injury time had passed, and theoretically there were only 2 minutes left. However, everyone knew that the referee would never stop the game after 2 minutes, and there would be at least 5 minutes of injury time. After Ward-Prowse came on the court, Evra quickly took a free kick from the backcourt. Chapter 572. Manchester United in this era is really passionate, and like the Red Devils. Evra took a short free kick from the backcourt to Giggs. Giggs rushed wildly on the left side with the ball, and Southampton's right forward Schneiderlin and Ward-Prowse, who had just come on, double-teamed and intercepted Giggs at the same time. Schneiderlin desperately used his body to fight against Giggs, while Ward-Prowse was a little impatient and nervous, and his movements were also relatively large. Giggs used his confrontation ability very calmly to push Schneiderlin away, and then kicked the ball through the crotch and past the reckless Ward-Prowse. Southampton's right side was immediately penetrated by Giggs. Fortunately, Mikel filled in the position in time to stop Giggs from continuing to penetrate the bottom, and Guran also sprinted from the far end, ready to confront Giggs head-on. At this time, Giggs certainly didn't dare to confront Guran head-on, so before Guran rushed up, Giggs half-turned to protect the ball and held Mikel hard, and then saw the right opportunity to pass the ball back to Evra, the third master, who was supporting behind him. Although this pass was a back pass, it was very beautiful, once again penetrating the gap between Schneiderlin and Ward-Prowse. After Evra got the ball, he immediately dribbled across. Guran also changed his line and blocked Evra. Ferguson in the technical area on the sidelines yelled and asked Evra to move quickly. At this time, Southampton's left side was a weak area. Evra made a long diagonal pass and transferred the ball to the left side of Southampton. Nani ran out of the gap and got Evra's pass at the first time. Chamberlain and Hammond chased Nani with all their might. Chamberlain even stretched out his arm to pull Nani down. It was dangerous to foul at this time, but it was better than Nani dribbling into the penalty area and diving himself. However, Nani was extremely fast. Almost in an instant, Nani dribbled into the left side of Southampton's penalty area. Font came up to block Nani. Goalkeeper Davis also got his defensive position in advance, and Rooney and Little P also opened up space on the other side of the penalty area. Guran quickly retreated to the middle of the penalty area, ready to intercept the cross. All the fans in the stands held their breath. This will be the moment that determines the outcome of this FA Cup match. Nani did not choose to cross the ball, but instead flicked his toes and shook his body. The next moment, after shaking off Font, Nani kicked directly and shot at a small angle. Davis misjudged the direction and fell to the lower left of the goal, but when Davis fell, he stretched out his foot to block it. The football hit Davis' calf exactly. It bounced out of the small penalty area. Davis's defense was amazing. Of course, there was definitely a component of luck in this. Not to mention that Manchester United fans were stunned. Even Southampton fans couldn't believe Davis' performance. This ball is not dead yet. The two sides started a melee on the right side of the penalty area. Mikel and Rooney collided, and both fell to the ground. However, the referee and the linesman could not understand what happened in the penalty area, and they did not dare to make a random judgment at this time, so they could only wait for the situation to become clear. When Mikel fell to the ground, he stretched out his hand to pull Rooney to prevent him from getting up, and at the same time fiercely poked the football that Rooney was pressing on his arm with his toes. In this wave of defense, Mikel was a complete villain, but it was also thanks to villains like Mikel that Southampton was not crushed. The ball that Mikel poked away was not good. The football rolled crookedly to the feet of Scholes, who had already calculated the position. Scholes was ready to kick in the chaos. Guran sprinted in a violent aesthetic and made a death sliding tackle directly in the penalty area. The ball under Scholes' feet was shoveled away. Guran's tackle was fierce and accurate, and it did not touch Scholes. Scholes retracted his foot in time and did not kick Guran, otherwise Guran would definitely be injured. Although it was a tense FA Cup final, and although the two sides fought fiercely during the game, the players on both sides maintained the most basic sportsmanship. After Guran shoveled the ball away, the football flew rapidly to the sideline. Chamberlain rushed to save the ball at a very fast speed. In order to save the ball, Chamberlain twisted his body and stepped on the ball at a rapid speed. In the end, the ball stayed on the sideline, but Chamberlain himself crashed into the electronic billboard uncontrollably. The main camera immediately gave the Premier League's top scorers Iosha Genjan rotation Berbatov, who were still sitting on the bench. Berbatov was as elegant as a vampire, with almost no expression on his face. When the camera cut back, Hammond had passed the ball to Guran, who stood up and blocked Scholes. When Guran got the ball, Scholes tried his best to intercept Guran, and even reached out to hug Guran's waist. Guran couldn't get rid of it for a while, so he could only knock his heels and pass the ball to Lallana, who came to meet him. After Lallana got the ball, he immediately sprinted at full speed. Manchester United's players retreated frantically. At this time, Manchester United's physical strength had reached its limit, but no one in Manchester United fell behind at this time. Even centre forward Rooney and Little P tried their best to defend. Scholes and Carrick blocked Guran tightly, not allowing Guran any chance to sprint. It has to be said that Manchester United in this era is really passionate. Very Red Devils. But Guran, under the double blockade of Scholes and Carrick, used his physical confrontation and explosive speed to pull Scholes and Carrick to the ground. Carrick raised his hand to appeal to the referee, but the referee ignored Carrick's appeal. It was Carrick and Scholes who fouled Guran first, especially Carrick, who almost jumped on Guran's back to stop Guran's attack. The referee didn't give Carrick a card, which was good enough. Scholes fell to the ground, looking at Guran, who was going away, his eyes full of despair. Guran sprinted to the front of the penalty area in one breath. At this time, Manchester United had basically completed their defensive positions. Lallana and Schneiderlin made a pass and almost lost the ball. Fortunately, Schneiderlin fell to the ground and passed the ball to Lallana. Facts have proved that without Guran's participation in the attack, Southampton really has no offensive power. But fortunately, Guran got rid of Scholes and Carrick in time and came to the front court. Lallana did not hesitate and directly kicked the ball horizontally and passed it to Guran. After Guran got the ball, he immediately moved to the left side, while Chamberlain, who was in front of the left side, actively ran to the bottom line and made a gesture to cut into the small penalty area. Manchester United's defensive players shrank their defense with all their strength. Rooney also chased Guran to intercept and defend. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 573, Golden Ball winner. Ward-Prowse gets a yellow card for indecency. Facing Rooney's frontal block, Guran made a Cruyff turn and easily got rid of Rooney. Rooney and Grolly bumped into Guran. Mikel rushed forward and blocked Rooney's collision with his body. Guran took the opportunity to bypass Rooney and continued to dribble the ball into Manchester United's penalty area. At this time, Carrick and Scholes were still in the process of returning to defense, and Manchester United's penalty area defense line was very empty. Vidic and Rio Ferdinand came up and closed the door to defend Guran. The two of them were very experienced in the closed door joint defense. Not only could they slow down Guran, but they could also compress Guran's dribbling space and prevent Guran from continuing to break through and pass the ball. If Guran wanted to bypass them, the surrounding Manchester United defensive players could quickly fill in the position, thus forming a new encirclement. If Guran wanted to confront them, Vidic and Rio Ferdinand's bodies were not vegetarians. At least they could hold Guran for at least 3 to 5 seconds, and could greatly reduce the effectiveness of Guran's pass or shot. Facing these two world-class central defenders, Guran was not afraid at all, and continued to accelerate and dribble the ball into the gap between the two people. Vidic and Rio Ferdinand were immediately prepared for the collision, but the next moment, Guran stopped and stepped on the ball, and moved to the left. Vidic quickly moved to the left to block, while Rio Ferdinand was extremely experienced and stood still, watching the changes. A gap of more than 1.5 meters appeared between the two. Guran lowered his shoulder like Matthews, shook off Vidic who had lost his position, and directly inserted into the gap between Vidic and Rio Ferdinand. Vidic panicked and quickly reached out to pull Guran. But Guran was extremely fast, and inserted in at lightning speed. At this time, Rio Ferdinand calmly stepped across to block, and at the same time, the goalkeeper-type goalkeeper Van der Sar attacked in a small range, to block Guran's path forward. The fans at the scene all held their breath. This seemed to be a mistake made by Manchester United in the closed-door defense, which allowed Guran to break their closed-door defense, but in fact, it was a trap set by Rio Ferdinand for Guran. As soon as Rio Ferdinand blocked the position, Van der Sar followed and blocked it, forming a more threatening closed-door defense. What was even more terrifying was that Vidic, who had just been shaken off by Guran with Matthews' shoulder, also flanked from the side and back. What was even more terrifying was that Scholes and Carrick also flanked from behind. Guran, who was dribbling the ball, was almost completely surrounded by this 5-man encirclement, with no room for breakthrough or passing. Just when all Manchester United fans thought that this was settled, Guran did not hesitate at all, and directly half-turned to protect the ball, and used his shoulder to confront Rio Ferdinand. Rio Ferdinand tried his best to block it, and Van der Sar also rushed up to confiscate the football under Guran's feet with his hands. At this critical moment, Guran pretended to turn around and shoot. Van der Sar immediately blocked the ball with his body, and Rio Ferdinand also stretched out his foot to block the shooting channel. However, the next moment, Guran used his foot to pass a crotch ball. The football quickly passed through Rio Ferdinand's outstretched hips and rolled to the empty middle of the penalty area. Rio Ferdinand was stunned immediately. Guran attracted the attention of most of the Manchester United players and then sent a cross. The newcomer Ward-Prowse, who had just come on the court, was not guarded. Ward-Prowse inserted from the back row, without even adjusting, and shot a simple push shot towards the empty goal. The football rolled towards the net at high speed. Van der Sar desperately chased back to intercept, but there was no way to stop it. The football entered the net. The ball went in. The Manchester United fans in the stands were stunned, holding their heads in unison, unable to believe that their powerful Manchester United was scored a fatal goal by an unknown young player who had just appeared on the field. And the Southampton fans were all suffocated. Happiness came too suddenly for them. They thought that this ball would definitely have no chance under Manchester United's desperate defense, and this game might have to go to overtime or a penalty shootout, but Guran attracted all of Manchester United's defensive energy and passed the ball to the newcomer Ward-Prowse with great trust. Are we going to win? Are we going to win the League Cup and the FA Cup in the same season? Now, just wait for a gesture from the referee. At this time, all eyes fell on the referee. After the referee exchanged opinions with the linesman, he gestured to the center circle, indicating that Southampton's goal was valid. The Southampton fans in the entire Wembley Stadium were all crazy. Ward-Prowse, who made his FA Cup debut, was so excited that he took off his shirt and rushed towards Guran to celebrate with his shirt waving desperately. He would definitely get a yellow card for this celebration, but Ward-Prowse didn't care. In his first FA Cup trip, he scored a crucial goal to overtake and reverse the situation. Although this goal did not have any technical content, even a dog could have scored it in this position, but the goal content of this goal was unquestionable. Football is like this. Sometimes beautiful goals cannot determine the outcome of a game. Those goals that can determine the outcome of a game are not necessarily beautiful goals. Many are just ordinary goals that cannot be more ordinary. But the key goal, no matter how ordinary it is enough. The score on the big screen at Wembley Stadium was immediately rewritten as Manchester United 3:4 Southampton. This is another time that Manchester United fell behind after quickly equalizing the score. And this time, falling behind will be fatal. Because the injury time has now exceeded the set 7 minutes. The referee will blow the whistle to end the game at any time. Southampton's players rushed towards Guran and Ward-Prowse like a pile of people, celebrating wildly. Manchester United's players looked solemn and quickly stood in position, ready to kick off again to tie the score. Only by tying the score again can Manchester United have the opportunity to play overtime with Southampton. Otherwise, Manchester United will hand over the FA Cup trophy to Southampton. The referee blew the whistle, signaling Southampton not to delay. At the same time, the referee called Ward-Prowse, who had just taken off his clothes, to celebrate after scoring a goal, and showed him a yellow card. Ward-Prowse happily accepted it. He scored the winning goal, and he was happy, even if he got a yellow card. The game continues. The extra time has exceeded the set time. After Manchester United kicked off, they immediately launched a fierce attack. Southampton still retreated to the vicinity of their own penalty area with all their strength, defending in the form of a bus. The injury time had exceeded 9 minutes and was about to reach 10 minutes. Coach Adkins pointed at his watch and angrily complained to the referee, protesting against Ferguson time in order to put pressure on the referee. Chapter 574 Giant Killer Cup. Southampton wins the quadruple title this season. In the 10th minute of injury time, Manchester United relied on the passing and cooperation between Scholes and Giggs to get a corner kick on the right side. Needless to say, this was Manchester United's last chance. After this corner kick, whether it went in or not, the referee would blow the final whistle. At this moment, all Manchester United fans stood up and silently prayed that the spirit of Beckham could descend on Giggs. Although Beckham is not dead yet, Manchester United fans still hope that Beckham will be possessed by Giggs, even if Giggs slept with his wife, and then the model, and then slept with his brother-in-law. Giggs also knew that this ball was extremely critical to Manchester United. Fortunately, he was a big scene man. The more critical the moment, the calmer Giggs was. Other Manchester United players pressed into Southampton's penalty area, and even the goalkeeper Van der Sar ran to the middle of Southampton's penalty area, ready to confront Davies head-on. Southampton's players defended with all their strength. As long as they could hold off this attack, they could create new history for the club. The tense atmosphere spread again in Wembley Stadium. Both sides put in their best efforts. Giggs took a glance at the penalty area, then took a run up, and kicked a powerful kick, kicking a Beckham-like arc ball. This ball was very beautiful, and of very high quality, as if Beckham was possessed. The football bypassed the head of the person who jumped up to compete for the header in front of the penalty area, and accurately fell to the back point in the weak area. Vidic, who was ambushing at the back point, jumped high and prepared to head the ball. And at the moment, when Vidic jumped up, Guran also predicted in advance, sprinted over, and used his body to block Vidic's tall body, removing most of Vidic's strength. Vidic did hit the football with his height advantage, but under Guran's blocking confrontation, Vidic's waist and abdomen could not exert force. The football rubbed against Vidic's scalp, and spun and hit the pillar next to the net. Then it bounced out of the baseline. The ball did not go in. It was out of bounds. All the Manchester United fans in the stands wailed in pain. This was basically equivalent to announcing their death. Vidic, who missed the header, also knelt on the ground, with his butt sticking out, and his face buried in the grass, not wanting to face this cruel fact. Manchester United's last chance was gone under Guran's full defense. Southampton got a goal kick. Coach Adkins immediately used the last substitution, and replaced Hammond with left-back/midfielder Dixon. Hammond limped off the field, trying to delay time as much as possible. After Hammond left the field, Dixon took his position on the field, and Davies slowly placed the ball on the small penalty area line, and then stepped back several steps to prepare for the goal kick. At this time, the injury time had exceeded 11 minutes. The Southampton fans at the scene were booing the referee. Davis passed the ball short to central defender Walton. Beep, beep, beep. The referee finally blew the final whistle that should have been blown long ago. Wembley Stadium was completely boiling. The score of this final was fixed at Manchester United 3-4 Southampton. Southampton created an almost impossible miracle. With Guran's pulling all the way, they surpassed to levels as a League One team and defeated Manchester United in its prime. The Manchester United fans in the stands were all stunned and couldn't believe the result at all. Perhaps, from the beginning of the game, when Guran scored a goal against Manchester United, they should have thought that this game would not be so simple, but even if they were fully prepared psychologically, they couldn't believe that the Red Devils actually lost to the Saints. This is the biggest upset of the season. But to be honest, many reporters and scouts from other teams were not very surprised by this upset. After all, the FA Cup is privately called the Giant Killer Cup, and upsets are common. What's more, Southampton is not just a dark horse in this game, but has been a dark horse since the League Cup, led by Guran. Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, Everton, Tottenham, Manchester City are not the opponents of Southampton with Guran. Of course, in terms of comprehensive strength, Southampton is still far from these Premier League teams, but football is like this. Football is round, and football has miracles. The only thing that will not have miracles in football is the Chinese men's football team. After a fierce battle, the Southampton team defeated the giant Manchester United team and won this year's FA Cup. This is the second FA Cup trophy in the history of the Southampton club. After more than 30 years, Southampton has finally embarked on the road of revival again. All Southampton fans are crazy. Every saint in the stands is screaming heartbreakingly, crying, laughing, singing and making noise. The roar of Chinese Dad resounded throughout the Wembley Stadium. Tonight, the whole Wembley, the whole London, the whole England, and even the whole world of football, all focus on Guran. Guran's value has skyrocketed without any transfer operations. The players, coaches, and staff on the Southampton bench all rushed into the stadium regardless of everything. They rushed to hug Guran and celebrate. Guran is the hero of the entire club and the god of everyone in the entire Southampton area. Guran single-handedly won the League Cup, the English Championship, the English League One Championship, and the FA Cup for Southampton this season. In this way, Southampton also won a place in the upcoming Europa League qualifying round next season, and with the FA Cup Championship, it won the qualification to compete with the Premier League champion for the Community Shield Super Cup. In this game, Manchester United, who did not fully demonstrate their strength, lost to Southampton by 1 goal. However, if Manchester United can win the Premier League Championship this season, then Manchester United will collide with Southampton again in the Community Shield before the start of the new season. At that time, the Premier League's top scorer Berbatov will definitely appear. So, from this perspective, the battle between the two teams is not over yet. But now, Wembley Stadium is the happiest place for Southampton fans, and Manchester United fans can only watch the happy celebration of Southampton fans with bitterness. Giggs frowned, pursed his lips, and walked to the bench without saying a word. Scholes put his arms on his hips, staring at the young Guran in a trance, his eyes full of emotion. Rooney was full of anger and angrily threw the towel that the Manchester United substitute handed to him to wipe his sweat, and he was still muttering dirty words, and it was unclear whether he was scolding his teammates or the referee. The game is over, and the award ceremony will begin soon. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.